Okay, Ruth, are we good to go?
Yeah, we're live on YouTube now, so just lock the room there.
Okay, thanks, Ruth. Okay, I just repeat what I said for those who just joined us virtually. My name is David Pollard. I'm the chair of Mountaineering Ireland. Dave Ayton on my right is the chair of our Finance and Risk Committee, and Siobhan Quinn is our company secretary. We're also joined virtually by our chief executive, Murragh McDonagh. Unfortunately, Murragh is recovering from an operation, so couldn't physically travel here tonight, but he is very much online. So with that, Murragh, I'd maybe pass over to you just to do some brief housekeeping and introductions.
Great. Thanks, David, for that introduction. And I'd like to start by saying welcome everyone to Mountaineering Ireland's AGM 2023. Thank you for taking the time to join us on such a lovely evening. It's great to see so many familiar and friendly faces, and I sincerely mean that. I'm going to take you through some of the housekeeping points now and on how the schedule and the voting of the AGM will work, and then confirming the voting delegates present to ensure we have a valid quorum for the AGM also, before handing you back to the chair of the board, David Pollard, to commence the AGM proper. This AGM is a hybrid event with both online and in-person delegates attending. Delegates online have been issued a Zoom link to the AGM, and since 6:45 p.m. they have been confirmed in attendance by us, allowing each delegate move from the waiting room into the AGM. This will eliminate the need for a physical roll call. We aim to have a total of 81 voting members, with 63 online and 18 in person. So 81 is the number we aim to confirm, but Ruth will be able to confirm for that to us a little bit later on. Please be patient with us during this type of event, as it requires all our technology to go according to plan, but sometimes there are mishaps. Please use the chat function if there is a sound or technical problem. Between delegates and other attendees, we have approximately 100 people attending in total this evening. The only people who will not have their microphone muted are those who are speaking. For online delegates, if you are asking a question, use your mic and using your microphone, please ensure that there is no background noise. If you're asking a question in person in Sport HQ, please raise your hand and move to the front of the meeting room to use the microphone. Once you've confirmed the quorum for the AGM, the meeting will be locked and only those eligible to vote can do so. At the end of the meeting will be conducted. Okay. So Ruth, if you have a chance, maybe just go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The AGM will be recorded and streamed live on our YouTube channel. Please take responsibility for what you do and say. The AGM will be hosted in person in Sport HQ at the National Sports Campus, Banchtown, Dublin 15, and live via Zoom. The panel, as David mentioned earlier, consists of the chair of the board of directors, which is David Pollard, board member and chair of the FAR committee, which is our Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, Dave Ayton, company secretary, Siobhan Quinn, and myself as CEO. The AGM is being supported by Ruth Whelan as host and Laura Griffin as the facilitator, which is required when using Zoom. Helen Lawless and Quavian McDade are present to support also, with other staff members and board members either present in person or online. So you have a full team this evening. The AGM has been, the reports for the AGM will be taken as read. Once a quorum is confirmed, the AGM will be locked to ensure that only those present and accounted for at the AGM can actually vote. Next slide again, please, Ruth. Okay, so how Q&As will work. Only questions relating to the AGM can be discussed tonight. Questions that are not eligible for the AGM will be addressed at the next members forum, date of which to be decided. If delegates wish to raise a question during the AGM, for those attending online, please click the raise hand function on the reaction tab at the bottom of your screen, or for those attending, please raise your hand. Your question will be brought to the attention of the presenter as we go through tonight's AGM slides. Only AGM agenda related questions will be discussed tonight. How voting or polling will work. Instead of having traditional proposer and seconder at the physical AGM, tonight we'll ask delegates to vote to approve each item. For each vote, you as a delegate attending online will have one choice to make by clicking either yes, no, abstain. Please Be careful when using and voting, as we only have one vote per item and we aim to have full accuracy. There is a limit of 60 seconds for delegates to cast their vote. Those present in person can raise their green or red voting cards or abstain from the vote. Once all votes have been cast, results will be presented as quickly as possible for all delegates to see. The tally of in-person and the tally of in-person votes will be taken and combined with the online votes results to account for all cast votes. This is to provide full transparency on votes cast in real time. We'll now hold a test vote to familiarize delegates of this process. This is just most people who are online tonight. So can we have, so any moment now there should be popping up on your screen the test vote. So please feel free to cast your vote. So Ruth, you might let us know when vote has been finalized.
Sorry, Murray, your reception is quite bad there. So if it's breaking at all, I'll try and decipher what I said. But at the moment, everyone, 37 out of 46, 40 out of 46 have cast their votes. So I think that
Murray, if you have your video on, I suggest you turn it off.
Okay. Okay, hopefully that'll help. Is it any clearer now?
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, apologies about that. So the first test vote has worked okay, Ruth, is that correct?
Yeah, there's the vote there now.
Okay. Great, well, we might close that down and go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is a list of the clubs and the delegates from each club and a total number of the individual members present tonight. So the total is for 81, but that might have changed depending on people's abilities. So you might know a little bit later on how the actual number of votes are. Can we go to our delegates? The next slide, please. Okay, well, at this stage, I'd like to hand you over to the chair of the board, David Pollard, who will go through the agenda and the rest of the AGM. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so we have the agenda there, I presume, has been circulated in advance, so I won't dwell on that. Maybe we just go to the standing orders, just and we so maybe I'll just read it out actually just for so everybody is clear. The standing orders are as follows. The proposer of a motion or an amendment to it may speak for 5 minutes, but not more than 5 minutes. Delegate speaking on a motion or an amendment to the motion may not speak for more than 2 minutes. The proposer of a motion or an amendment to it may speak for a second time for 2 minutes immediately before the vote is taken, but other delegates may not speak a second time to the same motion. Where the chair considers the matter has been sufficiently discussed, the proposer may be called upon for a reply, and when this has been done, a vote must be taken. A delegate with the consent of the chair may move motion to be put now. Motion now be put. Then when the proposer has spoken, the vote must be taken. I think fairly standard. So that's okay. So
The adoption of the AGM.
oh yes. John, yes. So first, before we, sorry, Siobhan's reminded me, the first thing we should do is formally adopt the agenda. Do we need to vote on that, Siobhan?
You do.
Okay, so there's a poll on the, so if you're out those in person, obviously with the green and your.
Please hold those up, like grab a count. Thank you. I'm getting 18 readings.
Maybe.
60 seconds to complete the whole, and then
It's not straight control.
We have 88% participating so far, so I'll just give it the last 10 seconds there.
Thanks, Rick. I know this is a bit cumbersome, but we felt it better to continue with the hybrid because it does allow people who can't actually travel to Dublin to participate. It does make it a bit more complex. Okay, so we can accept that the adopt the agenda has been standing orders have been adopted. And do we need to vote separately on the agenda, Siobhan? Something we do.
I think that one's for the standing order. Actually,
It was, yeah.
So, Ruth, is there a poll for the agenda or no?
No, next poll is for the minutes.
My apologies, I was wrong.
No worries. Okay, so moving on then to the minutes of the AGM of last year. So again, we're taking these as read. Obviously, if there's questions or queries, you're welcome to put those forward. But in the absence of any questions or queries, we'll just take a vote on adoption of the minutes from last year. So we can open the poll there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the poll is shared there. 33 out of 45 have said yes and 12 have abstained.
Thanks, Ruth. Okay. The next item then is some comments from myself as chair on last year, some general reflections. So I'm just going to make a few general comments about the year in general, and I'll talk a little bit about specific areas of our work. The first thing I'd like to mention is our new strategy. 2022 was the first year of this strategy, which sets out a roadmap for the organisation between now and 2025. The strategy, I'm not going to go into detail, but it covers 5 key themes or areas about making our organisation the best it can be, about continuing to grow participation in our sport, about supporting those in our sport, protecting access and mountain environment, and to help those involved in all of our activities to achieve their full potential. One comment I will make about the strategy is very much speaks to our sport rather than necessarily our organisation. We were quite deliberate in that. So we talk about promoting participation in climbing or hill walking, not necessarily about growing the organisation. Obviously, that goes with it, but I suppose our primary focus is on growing the sport. The other general point I'd just like to make about 2022, that it was the first year fully free of pandemic restrictions. And it was really great to see the organisation recover from what had been 2 very difficult years. As of last October, our membership stood at 15,000, which was the highest it's been in the history of the organisation. So not only did we recover, but we continued to grow. We saw the same thing in terms of our uptake on our training. Again, we saw numbers increase past pre-pandemic levels. And it was really great to see the normalisation of all of our activities, from competitions to challenge walks to women with altitude, to all of these things that really we had been very strange for the previous 2 years. So it was really great to see those. I'm going to first, not in any particular order, I'm going to just talk about access and conservation first. I'm really pleased to see that Mountaineering Ireland continued during 2022 to take a strong leadership position nationally on mountain access and conservation issues. I think it's really encouraging for us as an organisation to see that the organisation is clearly recognised by both by government and by other stakeholders and representative organisations as a key stakeholder, and they come to us to seek our involvement, which is really positive. There's two particular, I suppose, items I'd like to mention. I think it was last November, the National Outdoor Recreation Strategy was launched by Mr. Humphreys. Mountaineering Ireland staff were heavily involved in its development. The strategy the National Outdoor Recreation Strategy sets a vision for sustainable development and management of outdoor recreation over the next 5 years. And I believe our involvement in this gives us a real opportunity to influence issues that really are important, like access, for example. The other work I'd like to reference is the Croagh and Errigal paths projects. Again, mountaineering staff and volunteers played a critical role in both of these projects by bringing the right people together, by supporting, by nudging the project along. These projects not only involved the protection of two iconic nationally important sites, but they set the standard for future development of pathworks, of upland pathworks in Ireland. So I think really important, really great to have that involvement. On access, there's I suppose one distressing matter I must mention, and that's the scandalous attack on a landowner in the Glenmalure Valley. As a mountaineering community, I know we were all absolutely shocked at the treatment of somebody who's been a real friend to hillwalkers within Wicklow over so many years. And I'm sure I speak for us all in restating Mountaineering Ireland's support for the Dunn family. Here. They're turning now to, I suppose, climbing and performance, and I apologise, these are not in any particular order. There's been a very significant growth in competition and high performance climbing, both in Ireland and internationally in recent years. I think we have to be honest here, as an organisation, we're still very much at the building stage. We've a lot to do to get to where we want to be in terms of our support for our athletes. And I think I suppose we see the development of a performance pathway for athletes as a key priority for the organisation, as referenced under the Achieve pillar in our strategy. There are a few particular developments to 2022 I'd like to mention. 2022 saw the introduction of the Four Nations series, which with Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales coming together on in collaborative competitions, with each nation hosting a round in the series. This has resulted in a healthy increase in competitors coming across the water and provides a wider circle for our athletes to compete against. The other thing I'd like to mention that I suppose it happened particularly in 2022 with the establishment of an Irish youth squad. The aim of the squad is to develop young athlete skills for potential selection for Irish youth and the senior team, and for entry into international competitions. It was a very active year for Irish competitors, and there was huge. There was competition in a range of international events, which will be in the text. That I'm not going to list out here. It's too many. Just some other general climbing matters to mention. The Donegal Climb Fest and the Mourne Climb Fest and our newest meet, the Women's Rock Fest, were all very successful. In late 2022, we saw the eagerly anticipated publication of the new Dalkey Quarry Guidebook. I suppose it's almost impossible to overstate the importance of Dalkey to Irish climbing. So this publication, I believe, is really important. Mountaineering Ireland also continues to engage internationally through the UIAA, and it's worth noting that the UIA's Youth Commission, Youth Commission's Youth Innovation Panel is chaired by our own training officer, Jane Carney. Just again, also on climbing, just a few things to mention. There are a few important initiatives to encourage participation, which I'd particularly like to mention. The Get Climbing programme, which is aimed at young participants from hard-to-reach groups, successfully introduced a whole swathe of new climbers into the world of climbing. North of the border, we saw new relationships developed with councils, including Banbridge, Craigavon Council and Belfast City Council. These initiatives aim to open up future opportunities for all to participate in climbing. We continued in 2022 to strengthen our offerings and supports to our members, to our club members, through the club leadership programme, Happy Hiking programme, and our club community workshops. At the end of 2022, the club leadership programme had seen over 11,000 club leaders trained from 91 different hill walk clubs. Our Happy Hiking programme for 2022 ran from the end of August to mid-October at 20 different locations throughout the country. Over 120 clubs, over 120 representatives from 38 clubs attended our workshops for committees in 2022. 2022, as I maybe already alluded to, was an important year for our women and girls for women and girls initiatives, including Women with Altitude, Birds Outdoors, and the pilot launch of Summit Sisters program for teenage girls. Before, I suppose, I'm coming to, there are two events that occurred at the end of last year that I'd particularly like to mention, because I suppose they were really indicative of the renormalization of our activities. First was our first in-person gathering in 3 years, which was hosted by the Wayfarers in the Glenpew Hotel in Wicklow. As always, the host club had organised a super range of events, which included a really interesting question and answer session with the Irish Peaks team, which I think was worked out very well. The other thing I'd like to mention is on a pretty wet and miserable night in December, over 300 people turned up for a really fascinating line-up lecture hosted by Leo Holding. For me, the line-up lecture is not only a recognition of one of Ireland's best known mountaineers, but it's a real opportunity to celebrate what is best about our organisation. And finally, just before I finish, I would just like to mention two very sad events. Michael Byrne, who was a key member of the Irish Peaks team, sadly passed away on Christmas Eve. It was a real shock for us all, because we had met him obviously at the autumn gathering, and a year, 2 months later, it was a real shock. Michael was effectively Zest Communications, which has been central to the production of really all of our brochures and leaflets and annual reports for the last 12 years. So he'll be sadly missed. The other point, I know it's not strictly 2022, but in April of this year, Noel Hanna passed away in his sleep while descending from Annapurna. Noel was a renowned adventurer, endurance athlete, and a past recipient of the line lecture. His many achievements include the first Irish person to successfully summit and descend K2 and the summiting of Everest 10 times. I'm sure I speak for us all in extending our sympathies to the families of both men. And finally, I'd like to thank the staff team, my board colleagues, and the volunteers from across all our committees and clubs for your commitment and dedication throughout the year. Okay, so election of full members of the Sparring Club. So we have, so we have, again, we'll have a vote on this, I think. We have 4 clubs that we need to vote on. The Wicklow Wanderers Club, the Hillwalk and Radio Club, Schleif Hiking, and Fly Trek Little Island. So I guess we're just looking for go straight to a vote on that.
18, yes.
Okay, I think we can leave that past. Okay, Sean, I'll hand over to you for the secretary's report.
Okay, thanks, David. The last AGM was held on May 10th, 2022. So it was a hybrid meeting as well, hosted here in Mountaineering Ireland's head office, Irish Sport HQ, and via Zoom. There were 9 meetings of the Board of Mountaineering Ireland in 2022. Mountaineering Ireland submitted a statement of compliance with the governance code for sport to Sport Ireland on the 23rd of May 2022, and we're now listed on the register of organisations in compliance with the governance code of sport. All legal and procedural requirements have been followed, including reporting and submissions to the company's registration office. And Mountaineering Ireland is a company limited by guarantee and is a sporting organisation supported by both Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland. All the directors are extremely focused and clear about their duties to Mountaineering Ireland. The board of directors act at all times in the best interest and to the best of their capability with regard to the Mountaineering Ireland organisation, its members and other stakeholders.
Take if there's any questions on that, we're happy to take them. If not, then we might move on to the financial report and
Secretaries.
we've okay, sorry, we've got a poll, sorry, to approve the secretary.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah. I was premature with my thanks. 17, just hold them there. Thank you.
And we're just waiting to put down that follow. 67.
Good to go there, David.
Okay, so sorry, we now turn to the financial statements for 2022.
Yeah, David, hand over to you. Great, Ruth. So there are a couple of slides here, and I think probably as this is of particular interest to many of the membership, if you allow me to go through the slides, and then maybe we'll pause for any specific questions relating to anything that might come up in the accounts. So in terms of content of the slides, it's very much an overview, but in general you can see 2022 was a positive year in terms of the finances. We saw growth in the income. The expenditure also increased to scale, but we finished the year with a positive surplus of 42,000. In terms of core funding, so the main sources of fairly static income, you could call it. The Sport Ireland funding amounted to €235,000, Women in Sport 40,000, Sport Ireland and Healthy Ireland funding for the Get Walking programs came to 300,000. The Get Climbing program through the Sports Inclusion grants amounted to €50,000. And in Northern Ireland, the funding amounts of £48,500, specifically for the engagement of youth and clubs in Northern Ireland. So just go to the next slide, please. Yeah, in terms of the Finance Audit and Risk Committee, I suppose it's less about where and how the money is being spent, and it's more a case of having oversight to make sure MI fulfills its obligations to be accountable and compliant with the audit requirements. from our main funders. To that point, Mountaineering Ireland has operated with appropriate financial controls and processes. We've had oversight of everything, overviewed the monthly accounts, and done some work on the annual accounts before submission, and worked with the auditors to wrap up the 2022 accounts. There are specific financial reporting requirements for the funders, as in the previous slide, Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland. They've all been met with positive feedback. Budgets are in place for all programs. So, yeah, that's there. And in terms of the revenue, which I can go into in a bit more detail on the next slide, but where possible, Mountaineering Ireland has taken strides towards improving revenue on its income streams and managing costs associated with those things. As you'll see from the next slide, there's relatively few areas we have direct control over growth. Can everyone see that? The big numbers, I suppose, membership, as David mentioned in his chair's address, it was a bumper year for membership, which accounts for what amounted to over 100,000 growth on membership. Again, showing a return to form, emerging from COVID restrictions. That's the top figure there. Mountain log advertising was up by 10,000. It's progress. It's by no means a tapped out potential, but it has shown progress there. Training is another notable figure on the left of income that's shown a step change in growth, largely due to the winter and summer meets taking place. They'll fall into that training nominal, and also just the return to people going outside, securing their qualifications and working through Jane, the training officer, to progress their skills. On the expenditure side, a couple of increases. Rent, so some people might question, that's gone up a bit from last year, but that's the normalization and return to normal rental costs. There was measures in place through COVID to reduce that. Wages and salaries have increased on last year's accounts based on a new position that was deployed for a period somewhere 7 to 8 months. And also towards the end of last year, there was a kind of market rate adjustment exercise whereby we reviewed the salaries of some Mountaineering Ireland employees. And yeah, I suppose anything else on that, we're probably happy to address specific questions as and when they arise. If you want to stop now for questions on the accounts.
Yes. So I think we encourage people to stop for a few minutes and just, encourage people, I suppose, and that includes people online. So can we can see somebody's got a hand right. Ruth, can you keep an eye on that? And if somebody's trying to get in, can you let me know?
Will do, yeah. If they want to raise their hand there, and we'll let them speak.
Okay. The signing in.
Okay, so I'm looking at the supplementary information, which I think is probably the most interesting to the stakeholders. I find it, I have to say, quite confusing. If you were to take it at face value here, it says hill walking expenditure 854. If you were to take access and conservation, it says 5,569. If you see climbing, it says 63,504. I'm quite sure that does not represent the total funding, respective funding for each of these activities. I'm sure that's the case, but where can I, as a stakeholder interested in the general things, where can I find that information of what is the total amount of money that you're spending on each of these activities, including the work that is done by staff, some of whom may very well be doing more than one thing. In fact, I know that they're all multitasking away, but nevertheless, it is reasonable to ask, I think, for the sake of transparency, to know, well, I mean, roughly what is the organization spending money on? I mean, our chairperson mentioned we are getting into performance climbing. I would like to know, how is that going to be financed? Are there grants for it? Olympic grants, perhaps? I don't know. But where is the money going to come from? Because this money, really the supplementary information, I suppose, mostly represents the money that is not ring-fenced. You know, it's a valuable pool. So I would like to know how that could be done. Is there some way that this is more or less like a management account? How could that be improved so that in future years we can see what is the total amount being spent on different activities?
Thanks, Simon. Dave, do you want to start?
Yeah, well, I suppose firstly, for today's AGM, and I think Maura mentioned it, I think the intent of today is to focus on the 2022 accounts first and foremost, but just it's an opportunity to address your question. For example, the performance pathway, I think, would be financed specifically from other sources of income and wouldn't draw on the Mountaineering Ireland funds. You know, so we're taking steps to try and see what's available by funded means, and then put that in effect as a budget and allow, likely Michael, to decide how best to spend that for the performance athletes in question. The representation of I suppose the different activities and their relevant spend, I think we're kind of constrained to some regards in the format the accounts are presented by the funders. Sport Ireland, the financial checks MI has to jump through kind of dictate the format that the accounts need to be presented in, but you're probably right, that's not the most easily to digest from a concerned member's point of view. That was raised at the FAR committee, and we've kind of talked about changes that are realistic that we can make in 2020, well, this year and into next year, that will actually give us a bit more scope as to how we present it in a way that's probably more relevant to you and I. We can see what's been spent on climbing, we can see what's been spent on hill walking explicitly, where you basically amalgamate the ring-fenced lumps of money and you know, like the stuff from our prime funders, and also the MI spend from its own income sources, and you can amalgamate that by an activity heading. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think the discretionary, the funding that is coming from for Get Out and Walking, I mean, to an extent, the stakeholders, the main stakeholders of MI, really no influence in that. I don't see that should be amalgamated. What I want to see is it's the spending on this back page that you have as up on the up there explicable. You know, okay. So it doesn't say that climbing is getting 65,000 and hill walking is getting 849. That's fiction. We want to see a general idea of what is being spent from the discretionary funding. I mean, if you want to have a heading for what's also being spent in the Get Out and Walking as an example, I mean, that is actually pretty well laid out in this document. I'm not surprised that the funders are very keen to see what you're spending and so on. That's the nature of things. But my interest in this, and I'm sure that most of the people here, was stakeholders. We want to see, you know, a management style report that gives us an idea of what is the relative amount being spent on different activities.
Yeah, I mean, just I suppose the format of the report, of the financial report that the auditors approve, are they're quite there are restrictions in how that information can be presented, and we have to conform to that to some extent. That's what I suppose what you're looking for is something else that talks about, because we, like, you're right, the number, we're not reflecting the staff input into any of these, which is the main cost, which is our main cost. We're essentially we're staff driven organization, or the services we provide are staff driven. So it's, what you're looking for is something that I suppose shows the total that we're spending on Hillwalk. I mean, what we're talking about, the amounts that are quoted in the accounts are that's the that's the, I suppose to some extent that's the smaller amount. The big cost is in. So I suppose there's some way. Obviously, we can't do it. We're not. I think what you're proposing is we look at it for next year and see if there's a better way. But it is. I suppose the other complicating factor in this is that there are some monies that we get that we can spend as we see fit with, and there's others monies that we get that are ring fenced for particular problems. It gets very complicated when you try to put all that together. But I do understand your point that it is, you can't really see from those accounts what we're spending on Hillwalk and what we're spending on electric conservation, because really just talking about the actual invoice costs. It's not costs. We're not including the staff costs. So that's.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think it's a valid point, and it's one that was discussed. So I'd hope to have something more in line with what you're looking for.
Is that a yes, you're going to do it?
Yeah, no, look, this has been discussed at board level, and we are conscious of it. I suppose the fix is not as simple as, the fix is complicated because I say this, you've got these accounts, you've got your statutory accounts which operate in a particular format. You've then got the package of the different streams of money, some of which is ring fence, some of which isn't. So it gets quite complicated, but we are conscious that it does, the accounts presented don't really present a picture that's easily understood, and I think we absolutely accept that. Well, we are working on it. We're trying to do.
It's trying to do enough that gives you what you're looking for without putting additional workload on a staff pool that are kind of stretched in terms of bandwidth. I mean, there's huge scope to do more for membership, and it's not burdening them with, if the fire committee are looking for a breakdown of their time spent in the different fields, so it's trying to do what we can, give you what you want in a way with the information we already have that doesn't provide an additional load to the staff. But like you said, it's being discussed. I'd love to say yes, you'll have it for next year's AGM. It'll definitely be, I think a supplementary accounts page in line with what you're talking about is the closest thing you get to. We're working on it. But
Thanks, Dave. Are there any, Ruth, any questions from the people online?
Similar one there from Anne O'Neill, concerned that the hill walking expenditure is only €800.
The hill walking expenditure is not only €800. That's the petty cash, if you like. Well, not petty cash, but that's the invoice costs. When you need to fold into that actual staff, because most of our, as you can see from our accounts, a very significant percentage of our spend is on staff and insurance and mental logs. They're the three big areas which I think apply, obviously, which are a benefit to all members, not. So, but it's we can take the point and we'll try and do something else. Try and do better.
Yeah, presented in a way that I think reflects that. Is there any more, Ruth?
I have a question.
Yes, and
Thanks. I'm actually coming from the opposite point of view and looking at the climbing budget. I'm wondering, how is it possible that it's that much when so little is actually being filtered through to high performance? Because we know last year, for instance, on the youth team, it was only about 16,000 that came through in total. And the senior athletes are getting nothing consistently year after year. We have a development squad that is getting a minimum amount of money, but I would think that that's still, to my mind, about 25,000 more than I ever thought existed in funding. So I wonder then, given that there are these other questions in the room and online coming about hill walking looking like it's getting so little, I wonder whether this actually is possible to accommodate all of these strands under one organization. I know that's outside of the question in some ways of what you're looking to do by looking at the actual accounts from last year, but there is a part of me that wonders, how is that possible to accommodate high performance and hill walking and all of these other streams when immediately we see how contentious this becomes. And again, I don't want to fight with anybody from hill walking. I'm not suggesting that, but I just wonder, like, if I'm looking at this from the opposite point of view, if there's no money and nothing is coming through, then how do we fix that? Budget in terms of a budget, because how did the 63,000 go? Is it possible to know that, for instance?
Yeah, I think that would be addressed in basically Michael's finding reports. There'd be a budgetary spend on where that money's gone to. Just to touch on the topic again going forward as to how you could navigate that as one organisation without it making it contentious. I think to engage with the performance or particularly climbing performance pathway, you'd secure the funding, arrive at a budget, and then spend the budget. I think it would be very clearly separate and you know, highlighted in the accounts as separate to everything else. You know, within MI, the strength of MI as an organisation, hopefully, is what will secure you that funding to provide the budget and to provide that service and support to the athletes. It's not there yet by the sounds of things. In David's address, it's a work in progress. So I think I can't imagine that would be a contentious topic for the people whose passion is hill walking. I think it would be an opportunity we availed of, that there was funding there, and I secured it and spent it in the only place it could. So I can't imagine that would pose a problem, but it's kind of where we're at.
I think we obviously you've been involved. We are, you know, looking at, we do need to look at sources of funding for high performance that needs to be ring-fenced for high performance. I mean, the 63,000 that you're referring to is not just high performance, it's all aspects of life. So it's not 63 to high performance, it's life generally. And there are many more climbers who are not high performance than those who are. So it's you know, but that's not to say, you know, we have to get that back. But I think the key to it is attempting to seek ring-fence funding for high performance. So that's the way. And I know other similar organizations, you know, have done this. It's not rocket science. I do think though we are behind on this. And I think, you know, that's you know, we probably should have been doing things a couple of years ago that we're starting to do now. So I do absolutely accept the need for more money in that area. But I think I don't see it being, I agree with Dave, I don't see it being necessarily contentious. And I don't think Simon's being contentious. Simon is just asking for more clarity on the way the money's spent. You know, I don't think there's anything contentious about that. And it is a bit frustrating from members' point of view when you're handed with a set of statutory account. We're not the easy things in the world you read, but that's what was that. That's what we're after, you know. Yes, Vince.
So, general question on government accounts fund. Page 19, there's a few government accounts line items. I'm just wondering, something significant on your expenditure in those, and guessing they're just tied to Ireland walking. But if there's some scope for Mountaineering Ireland to apply for the government accounts fund for more general expenditure or core expenditure, and if so, that often came up for a reason in previous years. Maybe specific, but that's a general question.
Yeah, okay, no.
Sorry, if someone from the panel could repeat the question there, it's just hard to hear here online.
Okay, so basically, Vince is asking, it really is there more? Correct me, Vince, if I've summarized this incorrectly, but is the question is basically, is there scope to, I suppose, leverage more of that dormant account funding? That
general point, yes.
Yeah. Does anybody want to talk to you, Dave or Murrah?
Yeah, no, David, I'm happy to come in there.
Yeah, right.
And I hope you can hear me okay. I was having some technical problems earlier on.
Better luck this time, Laura.
Okay, great. Just, Vince, on the Dormant Account funds, it's a very specific funding stream which comes from the Department of Justice through the Criminal Justice Bureau every year. And there's a certain number of criteria that you have to work within to avail of that funding, where that money is spent. It has to be spent on hard to reach population groups, young people and people from socially deprived backgrounds. So people who go to schools are recognised as Clara or Rapid in the Republic of Ireland. So the only way we could see fit to actually avail of, get of Dormant Fund accounts for Mountaineering Ireland is through the Get Climbing initiative, and those centres where the children go to have to be in close proximity to match that criteria, which is the whole purpose of Dormant Fund accounts. So we are trying our best to work within the limits of it and to avail of the funding. So, but it's a very tailored and bespoke funding application to avail of.
Does that answer your question, Vince, or? No.
Yeah, I think that's. There's a specific one then on there's a fixed asset expenditure of 71,000. Just wondering, so what's saying what that was essentially.
Maura D, can you explain talk to the fixed asset expenditure?
Okay, I'm just looking for that in the AGM pack. What page number is it on, Vincent?
Back in a second, Maura.
Page 11, is it, on the balance sheet?
Yeah, I think it's mentioned twice there in the notes. Page 16. Tangible assets for the additions. So it's 79,000 finance paid.
Okay, I got it now. Thanks, Vincent. So that 79,000 relates to two key pieces of work. So I guess the tangible assets comes from your balance sheet, and those additions there for 79,000 cover two areas. It's for equipment we have purchased for climbing equipment, and we are waiting on the drawdown and receipt of funding from the Department of Sport in the Republic of Ireland for that equipment. And it also relates to IT equipment that we've purchased and a drawdown of grants for that as well. So that's why there's a figure of 97,000 there for additions. So it's funding we received, we purchased the equipment, we just haven't received the cash from the source from the department for it yet.
Sports cap.
I suppose Caliban.
Yeah.
Always used to. Also, guess the gear.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we've got somebody who's attending online got kicked out accidentally and can't get back in. Can nothing be done about this, Ruth?
There is there's no one in the waiting room that's registered at the moment, but if some people couldn't get in, it probably was to do with that the name wasn't clear, it wasn't verified by the registration list. But if they want to pop back into the waiting room, we'll try and get them back in there.
Right, the waiting room's locked.
Yeah. It is locked. Yeah.
That makes sense, Rick?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. We'll try and get them back in as soon as we can.
A quick question from
There's a question online there from Jared Sheehy as well.
yeah, so there's two questions. One is relating to the training expenditure, just asking, is that literally training for staff, or it's actually the provision of training to providers and to people upskilling. So it's a membership provision as opposed to staff. And
Can I just mention there as well, Dave? Sorry to cut across you. It's just I think people are referring to club leadership training. It's supposed to just to note that there was a lot of money spent on the club leadership program and the Happy Hiking program, which was directly related to hill walking last year. And I think where that's highlighted is probably in a few different areas, but one of the main ones would be the resilience funding support costs. But I suppose that refers back to Simon's original question about just making it a little bit clearer, I suppose. But
No,
just
I
so people are aware of that.
I mean, the answer is no, it's not staff training, that's
Yeah.
training.
If I might, David, just
Thanks, Shane, yeah.
that expenditure there for training refers directly to, if you like, my section. And so I can give some amount of detail overview. So part of that would be for the 2 international meets, winter meet and summer meet. And just to bear in mind, the expenditure shown there, you can pit against the income for training as well. So we bring quite a lot of income in, but it would be balanced against some of the expenditure. So an alpine meet would bring in income for courses and so forth, but money will be spent on staff to run those courses. So there's a balance there too. So the training grants also, there's 4,000 euros of training grants allocated that go to clubs and individuals to develop their training that they can then share with the members in their club or other members. So that would be another component. And then training for providers to keep them current, moderating providers, that's quite costly.
Yeah, question, that's probably, I think, unless we haven't, but I think the question was really, is all that staff training? The answer is no. The other point is that they're not net costs, they're gross costs. So obviously there's income associated with all of those, most of those costs. Thanks, Shane.
There are a couple of comments as opposed to questions just about the expenditure in regards to the mountain log. There's not really a question to answer, but people are just suggesting it's maybe money that could be better spent elsewhere. I think there's a work in progress, a questionnaire and membership survey about options for electronic delivery of the mountain log or where to take it, but it's probably not really a topic for discussion.
Yeah, I think what we'd say, just to say there is we have, as you're probably most people are aware, we've conducted an online survey over the last months. Will be, I think, an article in the mountain log. Brian is confirming on which you'll summarise the results of that. So I suppose that was the first thing we were asked the question. Is this an appropriate spend? So we're going through a process. The first step of that process was to ask people what they thought, and again, I suppose to thank all the people who did actually respond. So we've got some good data out of that we will help us to move forward. I don't want to steal Brian's thunder. I know we'll publish the details in.
I can't say that the survey gives a ringing endorsement to the mountain log. People value it very highly.
That is it. That's a very. But look, let's, as I say, we've done the survey. That was the first step. We're going to publish the results of that in the mountain log. We'll need to have further discussion on it. It's not a simple question, I think, really. Any other, and obviously one of the reasons that the cost of the mountain log has gone up is our membership has gone up, which is a positive thing. So it's we've gone up quite a considerable increase in membership from the prior year. Now that was artificially low because of COVID, but it's okay. And there any?
I think it just
Would it be possible just to go through, it looks like there's like over 55,000 come in for the youth development programs for Ireland, but then only just over 12 going out. So I wonder, how does that work when there's a funding stream that's coming in and it's being underspent? Does that get carried forward? Because we saw that last year with women in sport as well, where the money simply wasn't spent. And now that surplus seems to have disappeared. And I wonder if somebody talks to address those two things.
Okay, so I think with the particularly with the money coming from Sport Northern Ireland, the timing of the grant payouts isn't in line with the Sport Ireland grant funding. So I know some of the money might show as an income in full, but they may have only had a quarter of a year to spend it, and that funding is due to finance the next 12 months, but within a calendar year, you might only get 3 or 4 months of spend. I think that accounts for some of the in sport. I've looked at this over the last few weeks to try and get a better understanding of it. I think the last finance, Helen, better to correct me if I'm wrong, was over a 2-year period, and an application was made, I think previously MI treated it as almost three different streams of opportunity to spend within sport finance. And the difference you observe there in the monies received versus the spend, that money is not lost, but that's going to continue to be spent until we receive the next tranche of women's sport funding. The application has been submitted and it's changed to a one-year model temporarily while they take stock of their broader scheme. They'll probably return to a two-year model going forward. So I don't think that underspend you observe is lost. I think some of this is the discrepancy in the timing. And again, the nature of the reports MI is obliged to submit. It results in how it's presented there. So you can see the full income being received, but you can't actually observe that being spent in the 2022. Does that answer your question?
But I'm pretty sure there's nothing lost. It's not money carried over. It's actually very hard to get that money back because it's you know, if they're delegated a bigger purpose, but yeah, I think we do need to. I mean, it's certainly something we're conscious of, is making sure that there are no understands and we need to. The danger is you're carrying too much money forward, you don't get as much. The bigger danger is if you carry too much money forward, you get less grant the following year. So that's a bigger risk. Okay, unless there are any more pressing questions on the accounts, I think we might move to welcome the accounts. If there's anybody wants to say a last question, speak now or forever. Okay, I don't hear anybody. Okay, so can we take a vote then on the accounts?
Yes.
And I think, Simon, we very much take your point. And we need to, like, I know we had a similar conversation last year. The accounts as presented are very difficult to understand. I do accept it. It's not, the fix isn't easy, but we're hopefully doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the FAR committee, the people on it have gone through the change and an overhaul in the last 12 to 18 months. And I suppose we were finished on the accounts thing. It's definitely worth just thanking we've the committee themselves, Christina Petris, Joe Hoare, our accountant John Seven, and we've got Mark Talon as well, all working hard. Maura, the CEO, and Helen in a role as acting CEO. So they're the people who are kind of trying to keep tabs on things and affect change. But it has gone through quite a substantial change. And I hope we can get you something that makes you happy next.
Yeah, and I would say as well that even as a board, we had a lot of new board members in the last year, and they've had trouble understanding. So it's not just the AGM. There is a genuine problem here. We do need to figure out a better way to explain the accounts. We still have to present the accounts in the way they're presented for legal reasons, but we need to do a better job of explaining. Okay. Okay, so we can take it then. I think that the accounts have been approved. So we move on to the budget of auditors. Okay. Sorry, how do I know?
Sorry, I'm scribbling. I think the Northern Ireland Youth Development Programme money, the 55 grand odd coming in, includes the funding for Ricky Bell's salary. But what you're looking at in the expenditure is the programme expenditure, and the salary cost is in with wages and schools.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so now just on the appointment of so we were on foot of the last AGM, we took on board to go back to market in terms of our auditors. We've been through a process, and we have we're proposing a new auditor. We had, I think, five tenders which were assessed by our Finance and Risk Committee. And we do have a slight complication, just to explain. We didn't, again, it's hands up here, we didn't know this. We were alerted today that we were supposed to give the outgoing auditor 28 days notice. Now, we've been taking advice to the afternoon to figure out what that exactly means. So I just read out, I have a note here from Murrah that I'm just going to read out. So what we're proposing essentially to do is to take a vote on we'll explain who the proposed new auditors are, take a vote on it, but it can't take effect for 28 days, that's essentially. Murrah, have I explained that correctly, do you think?
Yes, David, are you going to read out a note or just?
I'm just going to, sorry, just opening my email here. I'll just read it. Yeah, okay, so the appointment of the auditor for 2023, we've just completed a process to select new auditors for 2023, having worked with Whiteside and Cullen auditors for the past 10 years. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Alan McLean and his team at Whiteside Cullen for their professionalism and support over these past 10 years, and wish them the best for the future. The outcome of our recent tender process to select new auditors sees OSK Chartered Accountants being selected. Therefore, our proposal is for the AGM to approve the appointment of OSK, giving due regard to the procedures and processes surrounding the termination and appointment of auditors under company law, to allow for a period of 28 days notice to be served at Whiteside Cullen, and to have OSK come on board as company auditors after this 28 days notice being served. The appointment of OSK would come into effect after this 28 days notice has been served. So that's what it's slightly complicated, but essentially we're proposing, so to explain that. So can we take a vote then on the appointment of this? And I think we've appointed, I think the intended was for 3 year period, wasn't it? I think yes. Although technically we'll still have to approve the next year for the following year.
Yes.
Actually, the scale to go back in the room. Okay, the next item we have is statements regarding safeguarding and anti-doping. We'll just start.
Paul hasn't come up.
Sense. That's it. Okay. So I just read out probably the safeguarding and statements. Just I suppose before I do that, just to make a general point, we have, and there's a reference to additional staff costs. We had as an organisation been doing, I suppose, fulfilling our safeguarding role through volunteers. One of the things we did last year was to appoint essentially a professional role within staff. It's not a full-time role, but we have, say, a new member of staff who is the National Children's Officer. I think given the increased requirements in this area, we strongly believe this is the correct approach. The safeguarding officer is Catherine Hibbett. She also lectures in safeguarding. She's, I suppose, she's available to us at the moment for two days a week. So that's like that. So just the safeguarding statement. Mountaineering Ireland is committed to best practice and upholding and implementing appropriate levels of behaviour, practice and conduct required from young participants, officials, coaches, trainers, mentors, parents, guardians and clubs. Mountaineering Ireland's safeguarding policy complements the joint Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland Code of Ethics and Code of Good Practice for Children's Sport. Mountaineering Ireland and affiliated clubs with youth members must each appoint a representative with responsibility to safeguard the welfare of young participants, ensuring Mountaineering Ireland and clubs operate in an environment that welcomes and encourages children in sport. The role is carried out by the children's officer who I just mentioned. Mountaineering Ireland and affiliated clubs also appoint a person to liaise and work directly with statutory authorities. So do we need to vote on that?
No, we don't. David, can I just come in there as well and just add to your words? Just, obviously the safeguard and safety relates to 2022. We started off 2022 and Jerry Gorman was the National Children's Officer who was a volunteer, and later that role was served by Laura Griffin, who took on the role when Jerry stepped away. So just to give a special thanks to both Jerry and to Laura for working in that role during 2022. Jerry stepped away because he's a very busy man with his work and with his family commitments. He just wasn't able to commit to Mountaineering Ireland as much as he wanted to moving forward. But nonetheless, I just want to thank him for his work and for Laura stepping in until Catherine Hibbert was appointed as well. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Laura. That's a really important point. I should have mentioned it. But I suppose we just feel that given the complexity and the demands on this, that it was no longer appropriate for Mountaineering Ireland to rely on volunteers to fill this role. Okay, the anti-doping statements I'll just read out now. Mountaineering Ireland fully subscribes to the World Anti-Doping Agency procedures and promotes a drug-free sport. Mountaineering Ireland references anti-doping in the rules of all national level climbing competitions. Mountaineering Ireland provides anti-doping education for the members of the youth team and other climbers who compete in international competitions. Mountaineering Ireland includes anti-doping education as part of relevant coach education programs. Okay, unless there's happy to take any questions. So we have two motions. We're now and the first is proposed by Cork Climbing Club. And Janet, I did see you were online there at one stage. Do you want to say? Well, I just read. I can.
Yeah, maybe if you read the motion and then I can say a few words.
Perfect. We propose that Mountaineering Ireland, in consultation with the National Parks and Wildlife Service, the Northern Ireland Environment Agency, and the National Monument Service and other appropriate authorities, investigates the options to create a database of information resources of climbing and hill walking areas used by Mountaineering Ireland members that are protected for the purposes of both biodiversity and built heritage, including information on how they may be protected by people in their use of these areas from mountaineering purposes. So essentially what the motion is that it's to ask Mountaineering Ireland to consult with other relevant stakeholders in terms of developing such a database, which I think would be very useful. Personally, I think it would be very useful to have. So Janet, do you want to will I hand over to you if you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. Yeah, look, as I said there, I'm Jeanette MacDonald. I'm secretary of the Cork Climbing Club. I'm also an environmental scientist by profession. I also have a cold, so if I start coughing, sorry. So I suppose we're all here are users of mountains and upland areas. Most of us will be aware that these are often very sensitive environments, but many members may not be aware that many of these locations are actually protected for the purposes of biodiversity protection under national and EU legislation. There's also over 150,000 sites and monuments in the Republic of Ireland protected for their cultural heritage and historical significance. There's many more in Northern Ireland. Lots of these locations are located in areas regularly used by Mountaineering Ireland members. I think it's fair to say that most Mountaineering Ireland members enjoy nature and are fairly conscientious users of upland areas insofar as they are able, but we're not all experts in biodiversity or cultural heritage protection. It's often difficult to know the best way to leave no trace in highly sensitive, sometimes unique environments. you might be surprised to find that there's quite easily available map-based databases. You might not be able to see, but written behind me, or you can ask me afterwards if you want. They're available online. If you Google things like National Parks and Wildlife Service, NIE, or the National Monument Service, you'll find them there. They're very interesting, but what they don't do is show where maybe our activities interact with those protected areas. And then I suppose what we've proposed this motion because to build on Mountaineering Ireland's new strategy, including the climate and biodiversity response, so that Mountaineering Ireland, in consultation with relevant national authorities, can look into developing a database or informational resource of sorts where the crossover between hill walking, climbing, and these protected areas can be identified in the first instance. And then maybe where there are crossovers, that the potential impacts can be identified. They might be positive, they might be negative, there might be both. And then where there are potentially negative impacts, that maybe there could be information that all of us could use to minimize that impact. And then on the other hand, if there's anything that we can do as individuals to help protect these cultural heritage sites or sites of important biodiversity value, that they could be communicated through that resource. So yeah, I just ask you to support our motion for Mountaineering Ireland in consultation with the relevant authorities to investigate developing some sort of database or information resource that might help to protect these areas of biodiversity interest and cultural heritage. Thanks.
Thanks, Janice. I know there was one or two comments online, I think. Is there anybody like to comment on the motion? Or yes. There you go.
I personally agree with all sentence and the idea of being aware of the environmental impacts, biodiversity, etc. Don't get against that. I have an issue with the word create, because it's a huge task for Mountaineering to do. And I just looked at her mission here, and it's the national body representing interests. But I think, to co-develop or collaborate or to make aware might be more apt verb. Or to create means at the onus of Ireland, and that's not what the primary mission or vision of the organization. So the word create is the one.
Okay, can we maybe close that down to the see there. It's the I mean, I think there was an original motion which was to build this, and we liaised with the Club of Cork, and we thought it'd be more appropriate to investigate the options around it.
I still think to have that as an option means that the onus of the responsibility of Mountaineering Ireland is not core to the mission. It's a collaboration. So I accept that you might weaken this, but I still think it might not be. To me, that means that the onus of Mountaineering Ireland to focus on Mountaineering Ireland. It's not on monuments. It's part of collaboration to be a better word.
Okay.
It's just very difficult to hear online what's being said in the room there. Just
okay. I suppose maybe I'll try and repeat and correct me if I'm wrong. The concern was expressed that it's around the word to create, options to create, and I suppose the concern would be that would create a very large body of work for Mountaineering Ireland, for which we're not resourced to do. That's the concern that's being expressed. Okay, but generally, I think that the speaker was very supportive of the principle of the motion, just concerned that it would create a
that's the mission.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Simon?
One of the online questions that points that flashed up there was, is there a list of areas?
Yeah. Yes.
So I suppose there are existing mapping resources that I mentioned there with lists of areas, protected areas, both biodiversity and built heritage, that you know, very like NIE, National Parks and Wildlife Service, and National Monument Service maintain. So that exists, but that crossover doesn't exist. And I suppose what we're proposing is an investigation into, can there be a collaboration between MI and these various bodies to develop a potential database? I understand that it's a big task, but it's what we're proposing is to take a first step to see, can that be done? Who is the person or the body who should undertake that task, or should it be done collaboratively?
David, Alan Lauder is trying to come in there online, well as raise hand to add to the conversation.
Alan, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, David. Would you like me to comment from an Access and Conservation Committee standpoint?
I'd like that very much.
Yeah, Jeanette's right. There is a lot of information online on designated sites, built monuments, and so on. It is really difficult to get that. I mean, for us who use it every day in our work, you know where to find it. It's dead easy to get. It's not very user friendly for most people. Certainly for your average hill walker or climber, they're just not going to have to be able to put all that together very quickly or easily. So it is an opportunity for us there. I think there's no question. You know, it could, you know, some sort of bespoke site or resource or app would be really valuable, I think. And it is playing to a lot of what we're talking about in Access and Conservation Committee at the moment. So I think, you know, you probably get quite a lot of support from us, I'm sure. It's worth saying though that in developing it, it is a huge body of work, but it is worth potentially seeking funding specifically to develop that. There are, you know, several agencies could potentially be sources of funding to help develop that. So that's an area we could look into and might take the main load away from either volunteers or from staff in particular. So that's good. There is another challenge around defining access and whether this might codify access in a way which might be undesirable to private landowners. But that's again a whole other area I'm sure we can overcome. So I would just, you know, just say I think, you know, warmly kind of welcomed, but with a little bit of tentativeness around exactly how it can be developed. But I think investigating it and looking at the options is something we could certainly manage.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, so
Can I just finish my own point?
sorry, Simon.
Okay, so the question, one question I would ask is, you know, is there a list of areas? And I can certainly say from the Mountain Views point of view, I operate Mountain Views. We actually have a list of mountain areas with relative amounts of usage that could be of interest. That's been established for some years. We also have a growing starting place database. It's about 1,400 starting places where people actually start hill walking from all over the island. That connects, I think, with some of the objectives of this. So I just offer that as something. I do believe the databases are necessary. I take the point made by previous speaker that Mountaineering Ireland would want to be careful about what it agrees to do. That's all I've got to say.
Thanks.
Can I add a comment?
Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian Kennedy, the Hill Walking Committee. So yeah, and I'd just like to echo part of what Simon said there. We have a resource. It's entirely free access to hill walkers. It's supported by a large team of volunteers. And in a sense, it's crowdsourced information about hikes and starting points. And so I'm, really grateful to Simon and his volunteers for creating that valuable resource for hill walkers. And I would encourage all hill walkers to be part of that process. Part of in terms of helping define what are good and bad starting points, what is our protected heritage, etc. And be part of building it. It's free, it's voluntary, and it's a very valued resource.
Jane, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks. Just from a recent meeting in Leeds with UIA and UMA, the European Mountaineering Association, they just launched a database, an international database that would include things like huts, trails and climbing areas. And currently Ireland's not yet a part of that So I think what Simon's just suggested there, and the resources that we already have to use, that we have to create them, I think to compile that, to collaborate and bring that together, and that might also be a landing space for that database. So I like the proposal here because of the angle it's coming from and the purpose that it's built on. But I think there's a lot of material like Simon's, for example, where the trails and so forth, the starting places, that we can layer those together and use the members as well to input because they are on the ground. So I think we've 15,000 volunteers to help with that. So it is a big job, but the coordination of all of those members, I think we have a lot of input.
Thanks, Jane. Vince. Can I ask? So just give a microphone, Vince. There.
Can I ask maybe an obvious question? Is it the notion of this motion that there will be a professional or staff-based job of work to be done, or is the motion requesting almost board approval for a subcommittee to voluntarily bring forward the options?
Thanks, Vince. I think that's a very helpful. I think. Sorry, Janet. I'm gonna maybe. Sorry. Can we just show that? The motion again. Yeah, motion again. I think there's a little bit of. I mean, I think the general support for the I suppose the intent of the motion. There's a little bit concern around the concept of creating a database, and I think that's many of us know what that means. So I wonder if there's something, could we modify the motion if we were to modify the motion? Sorry, did you? Yeah. Maybe if we were to modify the motion to take out the words create a database and more great resources for hill walkers and climbers. So it's to investigate the creation of resources. Jana, would you, and maybe we could append to that then that maybe the Access and Conservation Committee would liaise with yourself in terms of finding a way forward on this. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose it's the spirit of the motion. I think that's the important thing. It's that we can get the information that's needed and not just where the protected areas are, because, we can't all know everything about the specific habitats essentially in protected areas, for example. It's getting the information that's important for conservation to users of these protected areas so that they can protect them. That's really the sort of the spirit of the motion. And look, it is to investigate. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know whether or not a subcommittee, for example, would be required, or a specific member of staff. We don't know that yet. This is really a first step in saying what can be done in consultation with relevant authorities.
Okay, so yes.
I just said what I was going to say there. What I could agree with Kathy that perhaps create is a strong word to use. I think the active verb in the motion is investigate.
Yeah.
As opposed to create.
Yeah.
If investigate wasn't there, then it would be the concern. But the working word is to investigate.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks. No, it sounds good.
I'd like to comment on this as well, because that was part of the discussion in our group. I'm from this. I represent the same group as Janet, so we have this kind of shaping this. So I would like to, I see the fear coming from you about the creating the database, which is massive task. But this is not really the intention to create something from the scratch, which already exists. Database, in terms of the aspects that Janet was pointing out, already exists. We have already National Monuments database created. We have heritage places listed. We have biodiversity. All these things are already there. The intention of this motion is not to recreate the wheel. Wheel already was made, okay? The idea is to retrofile these databases towards our use, the way we are going to interact with those places. So we would like to set up the path that we will be going towards to make access to those databases useful for us. For example, having easy app that we can have nested builds places in the climbing areas to avoid the times to interact with those places. This kind of things to preserve and.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to just draw a line under this. So what I'm proposing is we're going to do an amendment on the fly here, which is not usually, but maybe we would delete the words create a database. So we would investigate options to develop resources for hill walkers and climbers.
Information resource, yeah, I would say. Or
So
information resources.
Access. Investigate access. Don't create it.
No, we're not going to say
Well, it could
create.
be compiled.
We're going to say maybe develop resources. Is what.
But is that not, then again, it's the same thing, then the implication is that that could fall to somebody in MI? I mean, if that's what the motion is, if it says to create.
Well, I think as has been pointed out, the active word here is investigate. So we're saying is investigate information resources for. Yeah.
David, I think there's another active verb in there. Maybe it's not a verb, I don't know, but it sounds like we read this first that MI are going to do it all on our own. We're not. It's in consultation with the listed bodies and other appropriate authorities. So the key thing we've got to do is to seek involvement from all those other bodies and spread the load. We can't do it all ourselves. We know that.
Okay, so
Sorry.
with those. Sorry. Yeah.
Just sorry, if I might, just one thing I'd put into the chat there, that this is the resource as a go-to organization for everybody. It isn't just for members. So I'd like to see whatever is produced there is available for, because we have a lot of tourists to Ireland, and to inform and educate them on their behaviour when they're out. And obviously the honeypot areas are going to take the biggest hit. That's where people visit. So, you know, even to focus on some of those really busy areas as well, even as a start point, I think would be.
I'd agree. That's probably the highest point of impact.
Yeah.
Maybe even suggest maybe investigate options to make information resources available. That'd be. So if we said.
You see, the thing is, certain information is available. It's just not joined up.
No,
So
but we're about making it available to climbers and hill walkers. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
People who's not available at the moment. So we're investigating options to make the necessary information available to climbers and hill walkers. Okay. So with that amendment, can we vote on that as an amended motion, and then if that's okay with everybody?
Sorry, I'm not clear on what we're voting on now. And I've proposed it, so.
So
could we maybe, so I'm looking at the motion on the screen, so could we maybe, is there somebody in control of the screen, could maybe type it out so that we could just read it for 1 minute?
I will try my best.
Thanks, Ruth. Okay.
I have the end poll here now, so sorry.
I think the edit was just investigate the options to create information resources for climbers and hill walkers. Would that be correct?
I think you're people still have questions there.
Change the order of the verbs here.
Okay, so Ruth, are you good at typing?
I can, yeah, I'm ready to type.
Okay, so we proposed a Mountaineering Ireland. Maybe is it engage with or in consultation with?
In consultation.
In consultation with NPWS, NIEA, National Monument Service and other appropriate authorities to make information available. Investigate options.
Okay.
Investigate the options to make information available to the on climbing and hill walking areas used by Mountaineering Ireland members that are protected for purpose both biodiversity and heritage.
On areas used by hill walkers and climbers, so that it's not specific to Mountaineering Ireland members.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to investigate options for making information available on areas used by climbing and hill walking hill walkers that are protected, and we might even take out used by Mountaineering Ireland members. Yeah, and that's more in keeping with our strategy, which is more around inclusive. Yeah.
So sorry, used by hill walkers and climbers that are protected, not Mountaineering Ireland.
Yes.
Can I just make the point, kind of on board of that? I'm not sure I'm Mountaineering Ireland or other AGMs, and that the usual process is for the person who proposes the motion to initially accept the amendment that has been made, and then perhaps give the member proposing the opportunity to suggest that before we vote on it. And if they don't agree with the motion put forward, and we can reject it.
Perfect. Yeah, no, great. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, are we? Who's typing here?
We're in the presentation.
Oh, that's
so Ruth is typing.
That's what I do a cut and paste, I suspect, on the so still typing outside and pasting.
So will I relaunch the first motion to vote on that first? Is that what we're doing?
So I think we need to display the.
Yeah, we'll need to see what the actual text is.
We put it in the chat, right?
Yes.
Whichever.
Yeah,
just as a lot of people have said different things and what they understand the revised motion is.
Okay. So the revised motion, I'm going to launch this now and you can have a look, and then I'll be able to copy it into chat if needs to be. But if you see there, motion 1 by Cork Climbing Club, amended, proposed in consultation with the NPWS, NIEA, investigate the options to make information available on areas used by hill walkers and climbers that are protected.
Yeah.
Okay, but that is more broad.
There isn't.
Okay.
You know, they could be protected for other purposes other than biodiversity and.
Okay, let's get the word biodiversity.
Heritage.
Let's get option make available, make information on areas that are protected for their biodiversity and built heritage value.
The rest of it's fine.
The rest of it's fine. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question that was asked earlier? Is this asking for Mountaineering Ireland's backing to do this, or is it written with the expectation that MI is going to carry this out? Because from my point of view, we have a 5-pillar strategic plan. We're 18 months into it and things are not being carried out from that strategic plan. This seems like a whole other massive thing to take on. So I mean, I think it's a great idea if it's going to be a club that's undertaking this and wants the NGB is backing. But to me, it seems like a huge thing to say, oh, actually, we're going to take on this. It's like a 6th pillar.
Yes.
Yeah.
This really fits under the existing pillar of the strategy. I think it's called climate and biodiversity or something like that.
I think at this stage, look, we don't want to write anything here that commits Mountaineering Ireland to doing anything. That's absolutely clear. What we're trying to do, we're supporting the intent of the motion. We're trying to find the form of words that don't imply that Mountaineering Ireland is going to do it. What I think we're talking about is in reality, we're probably talking, Alan, I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, but the Access and Conservation Committee liaising with the Cork Club to come up with some options around how this might how this might happen. It's not the intention. We have one Access and Conservation Officer. She's not available to do this. Like that's I'm absolutely clear about that. Ian.
Yeah, agreed, David. Yeah.
The people that need to do this are the relevant agencies. So I think that's our position, given what you said here. Correct. We're the ones to advise Parks and Wildlife and AL on how they should be presenting their data so it is accessible to the general public so that those sites are done. So I think that the onus is you need to turn this on its head. We're the ones that advise them on what they should be doing.
Okay.
And encourage to do it, rather than us getting ourselves out of those months.
This is kind of a little bit like the mountain weather forecast where we engage with that area. So this is the same kind of thing. It's
I think, David, if I may, I think the key deliverable here is not the actual stuff. The key deliverable here is an investigation of
Exactly.
Yeah. I think personally, the only thing that needs to change here, the whole of it is fine because it's an investigation into the options. It's not saying we're going to create a database. It's an investigation into the options to create a database information. I think if we put in the S after resources for climbing and hill walking areas used by participants or climbing and hill walking participants, I think the rest of it is absolutely fine. It's only an investigation. We're not saying, well,
it's just a first step to see, can Mountaineering Ireland possibly contribute? And if they can, how? It's just a first step.
Even if the word maybe commences an investigation into, then it's more clear that it's the start of something, but not the big job of work that we're worrying about.
okay. I'm going to add that. We're going to just going to take a vote. You see here. So
Tie it to the technical biodiversity of the.
Yeah.
That could be copied and pasted from the original.
Sorry, it's just hard to hear there. Am I to end this poll and reword it again, or?
So no, just our protect at the end of that. Just see our protected for the purposes of biodiversity and built heritage.
There's more to it than that, though. It's actually the piece about including information on how people can be responsible in their use of those areas. And that's part of the motion that should be included.
I agree.
Okay.
You copy and paste everything of the protected. Because we agree.
Yeah. Okay. We do that, and then we need to move to a vote on this.
Sorry, I have to end this poll because it already launched and
Sorry, Janet. Sorry. Are you happy with the amendment that we proposed?
Well, again, I need it. I need to read it.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it literally take me 10 seconds to read it, but there's just so many people have said so many things, and I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
If Ruth can just include everything from protected on.
What best is she wrote?
Okay, we don't ask this. I'm not sure who's going to close the last.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm not connected here. Look, Peter, we're going to have to move this on. Okay.
David, why don't you move on to motion two
Yeah.
ask the proposer to write a document and email it to us right now, and we'll look at it in a few minutes.
I think we're a little bit afraid to do that now. I think
it's the screen is already being shared. Ruth's computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if Ruth opens a Microsoft Word document, while the screen is still being shared, we will see what she types, and she will have a large page on which to write the amended motion. Everyone can see that.
Okay, Ruth, did you hear that?
I think so.
Copy and paste it into a Word document and just show the
screen.
Show the screen.
Okay.
I suppose, like, ideally, maybe this.
Presentation mode.
Yeah. Yeah, just come out of presentation on PowerPoint. Even simpler. Yeah.
Okay.
You just come out of presentation mode in your PowerPoint.
Yeah. Can you see anything now at the moment?
Yeah, you can see your whole screen.
Okay, Grant. Yeah. See where my cursor is? I'm in here.
Online, I can just see Ruth.
No, we can just see everybody.
No, we can't see your screen.
We can't see.
Okay.
Maybe we don't.
Okay. So if someone advises me here, yeah.
Okay. Investigation. Take out. Maybe just put in how best and just replace the option to create a database information as well. So investigates how best to make information available to climbing and hill walking areas that are protected. So just
biodiversity
from the for biodiversity and heritage.
Well, you just took to lead.
Yeah.
Delete this.
Yeah.
The purposes of is missing. The purposes of Ruth.
Well, do we need that?
Oh, no, okay, fine. I'm just thinking of the legislation. That's written. We need to.
That seems fine to me now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna vote. Can we just? Okay, we just go straight to vote.
Okay, apologies. I just have to change the poll there. 2 seconds.
That's longer than I expected. I think it was a good.
Are we ready to exercise your arms, drop your brains?
Okay, so
So just keep them up, and I'm going to count the no's first. So we have 3 no.
4 no's.
Sorry, 3, 4. Okay. And yes, 2, 7, 11, 13. 13, yes.
Just need to add that to the poll when it comes in. Okay. It is, yeah. That's yeah.
So we have 26 out of 36 that said yes, 6 out of 36 said no, and 4 abstained there.
Okay, so we have a result.
Passed.
Okay. On to motion 2. From that. Yeah. So just on, I suppose on this, this was, I suppose we discussed this at the board over the last few days. We were, I think, very supportive of the intent of the motion. I suppose we're concerned on 2 fronts. One in terms of I suppose we're tying our hand to do it in all circumstances where there might be conflicts with what's on maps and so on. And I suppose the other, we just wanted to make the language as inclusive as possible. So I suppose we had there was a motion, an amendment proposed by Brian in the information pack for the meeting. We had another Will Smith from Peaks Mountaineering Club contact, who's I think a PhD in history, contacted us today with just further amendments. So we could show what we proposed. So what we have is we have an amendment, and we have the amendment that was originally proposed by Brian, but slightly modified after conversation with Will today, which I think we can show. So what I propose we do is that we first of all vote on the amended motion. If the amended motion passes, then essentially that's accepted. If the amended motion is rejected, then we'll go back to vote on the original motion. So that's unless anybody has objection, what we're going to do is we're going to start. Okay, I'll come to you, Martin. So just on the process side. So let's get that straight first. So Matthew. Sorry,
Matthew.
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 Matthew. Okay, sorry, Matthew.
I just questioned the validity of that. I questioned the validity of that process. Just under paragraph 18 of the Articles of Association of Mountaineering Ireland about alerting the members within 21 days of the AGM motion what they'll be voting on, and this is essentially another motion that wasn't included 21 days before the AGM, and therefore, my understanding of the Articles of Association, inadmissible as a motion.
Okay.
That's I raised that point in my.
Well, if you look at the standing orders that we voted on a short time ago, it's that provides for the proposal of amendments to motions.
Yeah, but we're essentially voting on not my motion, third motion that is similar to my motion. You know, if we can, if we're going to pull up my motion, let me do my 5 minutes talk about it.
Okay.
And have back and forward. I am willing to accept the amendment of my motion, but I think the admission of essentially a third motion after the 21-day rule laid out is not fair.
Well, the amendment was the board Brian's amendment was circulated. Now, obviously, I don't think
it wasn't 21 days to channel membership.
No, but you can't. We've just been through this process on the previous motion. We had just amended the motion.
I know, but the process there was the motion was put up. Jeanette gave her 5-minute talk, and as a community body organization, we had back and forth and amended in the presence of all members,
okay,
the proposer and all that. Open to that, fine, let's do that. That's okay by me. What is happening is that is motion 2. There is a third motion which you can call 2A, 2.1. It is third motion that's been proposed after the date of admittance for proposals and publicized among the membership after the date stated in the Articles of Association. I don't think it is correct. But I am willing to talk about amendments on my motion.
Okay. Sorry, just going to take a few. Yeah, no.
Whatever about the 21 days for a motion, you're absolutely right. It has to be in 2 or 3 weeks before the meeting. But the standing orders on the practice in this and other organizations is amendments can be accepted on the day. And what we have here is an amendment to a motion which was submitted in plenty of time. And standard operating procedure at meetings is quite clear. You vote on an amendment first. If it's accepted, it's accepted. If it's rejected, then you revert to the original motion. On the other hand, by the way, I don't think you should not be able to speak about your ideas. That goes without saying.
Just to say to that, like we did have this just now that we amended the motion. The amended motion was approved by the proposer, Jeanette, in the previous case, myself, Patrick and Derek. Patrick, by the way, was here and had been kicked out of the online thing, as was another friend of mine earlier on in the meeting. So I didn't, because he just technically said I've just been kicked out. And Dahi Moore was also kicked out.
Well, that wasn't, I can assure you that wasn't intentional.
I would have thought, like, well, not kicked out, like there's technical issues, you know, he is not in the meeting anywhere.
Okay.
2 people, but Patrick, like Dahi, whatever, he's just a member. Patrick is a proposer here. I think it's
okay.
It's unfairly been removed for some reason.
Well,
he was removed and a passive verb. You know, he can't get back in. He can't be in here. He can't talk. He's locked out for some reason. So I'd like to make that point for it. And then, but secondly, I'd like as a previous one. There's my motion. We can amend it through a process of discussion here.
Okay.
And vote on it. Then the third motion that was submitted after my motion submitted and after the dates for submission of things, perhaps you want to vote on that afterwards. But I think the just course of action here is to let me talk about this, have some discussion with the group present here and online, amend it. As you say, we're allowed to amend proposals on the day. we will amend this proposal on the day.
Okay.
Because I think what happened here is, say we vote on the next one, we vote and approve that, that's accepted, and you propose not to vote on mine afterwards. And
That's fine.
Well, you just
If the amendment is carried.
but not, it's not an amendment, it's a separate motion.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, no one in the room had input on.
Okay, just can we just,
Say something there, sorry, not you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what you're trying to say is there was an amendment done to his motion, which is number 2.
Yeah.
Which is 2 points for me. And now we're going to vote on one amendment, which Matthew hasn't had a chance to explain what this motion is about. And once this motion is explained, we can then go about the amendment. We're kind of putting the cart before the horse here.
Okay.
Whereas we should talk about the cart and then put the horse in front of it. And then Matthew talk about the motion. And you know what I mean? Yeah, Matthew talk about his motion. And then the amendment that the board has adjusted. If he wants to talk about that then after, I think we should. But let him talk about his motion first before somebody else's amendment is put into it. Like the last motion was put up and we all spoke about it.
Yeah.
Well, not all of us, I stopped back.
Yeah.
The last motion was there, everybody got that one
Yes.
and said something about it, and
Okay.
then it was agreed.
Yeah.
So now we've got motion 2, let's do motion 2.
It's right, let's go on with motion 2. That's on the agenda.
Okay, what was your thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up there and point things out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's 5 minutes, no? Okay, my name is Matthew O'Connell. I live in the corner of Belfast, so this is a close thing to my heart. I came up from the Kerry Belfast today where I'm working. I had some discussion with the board about it, and I'm willing to make some amendments as they suggested and talk to the group about this. But essentially, the crux of my motion is that in the Belfast areas, it's down here. Mountaineering Ireland agrees with measures taken mandates to use the Irish language versions of upland features in Gaeltacht regions of the country to help normalise their use and apply to press releases, letter submissions, social media posts, and other publications by Mountaineering Ireland. And by doing this, I believe that Mountaineering Ireland would follow a process that has been in place officially in Ireland for the last 20 years or so, since the introduction of the Official Languages Act, which Mountaineering Ireland does not fall under, but you know it applies to lots of areas of public life. One of those areas of public life is the Ordnance Survey of Ireland, and you may have noticed in more recent publicised maps by the Ordnance Survey of Ireland, the Gaeltacht regions use the Irish language place names alone for mountains and places like that, as they're dictated to by the legislation. Other organisations have adopted similar motions. Conradh na Gaeilge, the Gaelic League, brought one into themselves. You would think they would do it anyway, but they have to have a vote on it. The GAA have done it. The Union of Students in Ireland have done it, and RTE do it as well. So if you read reports of news that happen in the Gaeltacht areas, RTE's mandate is to use the Irish language place names for places that are in the Gaeltacht. And I might just define what the Gaeltacht is for maybe not everyone who knows what the Gaeltacht means, or because some people think it's a summer camp that you go to, but we're a community of people. And it's true when people say, are you from the, I say from the Gaeltacht, they're like, the college, the camp, it's a geographical area defined in the 1956 Gaeltacht Act of places where the Irish language was the majority language, as it is in my community and some other Hannah's here communities in West Kerry. And this has come from the ground up, from the Gaeltacht civil rights movement in the 1960s. I must be joking. Okay, we'll talk about it again. But from the Gaeltacht, So from the Gaeltacht, I would look at this coming on the back of the Gaeltacht civil rights movement, who campaigned for similar things, that brought in the 2003 Act that road signs and things would be in Irish for the Gaeltacht place names. Now I understand that it's a lot of text and the board have some issues, but really the only thing that I care about is the end part of it there, that Mountaineering Ireland would use it in the Gaeltacht regions. You can take out absolutely anything. You don't need to recognise it. You don't need to talk about the mapping. You don't need to commend Scotland, USA, Australia, other countries that have done it. I'm happy to cut it right down to just that last bit there, that Mountaineering Ireland will use the Irish language versions of upland features in the Gaeltacht regions of the country to help normalise their use. That's pretty much it, I think. Yeah.
fine, that's, so, okay, so, okay, this is that, yeah, no, that, I look, I think we're not on different pages here, we're just,
Yeah.
I suppose, the concern that the board had was, I suppose, that, whereas I suppose that what we proposed was that it would be, we would make every endeavour to use it in Irish place names and Gaelic areas, but I suppose it was in all conditions you shall use it, I suppose was the concern that we had. But I think what you're saying, so that's just, it's not, I say we respect what you're putting forward. It's not that we're not, I suppose the concern was that if you absolutely mandate that they, and I know, because I know I spent a lot of time in West Kerry myself, I know that I'm actually a member of a club in West Kerry. So we would use, the Irish language names would be frequently used, and that's what we do. So it's not that we're it's not, we are support. I suppose the board was supportive. It was just concerned around, I suppose, the mandate element that there was no flexibility there. I suppose that's just
yeah. See, my issue, the the next motion there is that the where possible thing doesn't hold water at all to me in my experience of it in any context. That where possible means, oh yeah, we agree in theory to that with a bail or lip service to it, but no one is beholden to it for anything, and it just slips out of use. So it's not. It's a very watery kind of phrase to use where possible. And this, to me, it's not difficult to do. The resources are there. There are many resources. As I said, the Ordnance Survey has rode in on it since I think it was 2015. I mean, the legislation came in 2003, but I think it's 2015. Someone else might correct me on that. But that the maps published since then have used it, so they're there. The Loganim Tunkai has a mountains division that puts up things. It's not dark magic or black magic trying to find the Irish language place names for the Gaeltacht regions. As I said, in the Gaeltacht, it is a minoritized community in Ireland, and there's a lot of.
I do significant by hill walking in Gaelic areas, so I do understand.
Well, for everyone else, and not just directly talking to
okay, so sorry, Kathy, you want to come in? You had a hand up there. No, sorry. Sorry, not with some spot.
No, it's fine. Just in the interest of time, I guess, I agree with principle.
Yeah.
Don't like the word mandate. It will cause effort. I think support use. Let's say if would be for a year or two, see how it goes. Just in terms of time.
Thanks, Kathy. Sorry, I don't know your name.
Hello, yeah, Phil. I think putting down words such as support and we back it and all that, I think that's a waste of time. The key to this motion is what Matthew wants is that we give a commitment that we will use the Irish names, and it's not a big deal. Putting down Tonlaway instead of Tonlaway, that's not extra work. And I think looking at the other option where possible, that's giving get out clauses. We're here to make a decision. Should we support and mandate the use of the Irish language names? And I think we should. I think other countries are doing it. I think we'll be left behind. We should follow the trend that is happening already. So I would certainly support that motion.
Sorry, did you want to? Sorry, I don't know your name. Sorry, do you want to?
Okay.
Do you want to come in? No. Sorry, Brian. Then.
Yeah. So again, thanks, Matthew, for your proposal. I think
I just want to. I'm very sorry to interrupt. Very sorry. Excuse me.
Sure. Yeah, what I was going to say is I think what you're hearing from the room is that we support the intent of the motion, and that was actually our position with the amendment. There is a lot of language there.
Yeah, as I said.
Yeah, so I think if we were to go to maybe the amendment that was proposed, it strips it down to the core, because there's a lot of ambiguous interpretations of history there. There's a certain amount of blaming. We're an all Ireland organisation, and we want to avoid language that is non-inclusive. So I think we can take away the emotive stuff that opens a can of worms and go straight to the core of what you're proposing, and see if we can support that.
As I said, I'm
Sorry,
very,
Matthew,
very
I'm just going to take, I'll come back to you in a minute, yeah. Sorry, I don't like.
Yeah, I'm Rachel from the Dundalk Walking Group, and I don't know if you're aware, but we have a very strong Irish language tradition in Dundalk and been recognised from Belfast point of view. I think we have to appreciate that we have two languages in this country, the one most of us speak, which is English, but also Irish, which is legitimate language. It's recognised as a European language. I think we absolutely should be calling our mountains and uplands and everywhere else by the Irish name, because the anglicisation of Irish names, that means nothing now in terms of what words mean for, you know, people say, well, what does that mean? It means nothing because it's just an anglicisation. So I would totally agree with Matthew. I don't think you can use words like support. It's a bit of lip service, really. I think if you're going to do it, we have to say that it is done once and for all in all social media posts and submissions. And that's just from listening. So I came here with no opinion on it, but I don't like the kind of watching down of it.
Can I just say just to point at the film? Is it? Yeah. He mentioned Tunlaglee. We won't be using it in Tunlaglee. It's just the Gaeltacht regions. If other people are concerned, it's not to do with anywhere outside. Leaving all the Crow water and the hot solution. Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Cork.
Yes, so my question about this motion is just only about one particular thing, that's the use of the Irish words in places where the common names for the geographical features we visit, are those names to be used instead or along?
No, instead, in the Gaeltacht regions, now I know again, NGB not under the official languages. Like,
so, for example, Glendalough will replace.
Sorry, David.
No, Glendalough is not in the Gaeltacht. Just again to explain what the Gaeltacht is an area that was defined in the 1956 Gaeltacht Act as a place where the Irish language is the prominent language of the community, and they're clearly defined. So Glendalough and those places wouldn't be included in that. It's places like Beanwan in Galway and Chailloch and those kinds of places. You know, it's especially designated for the want of a better word, perhaps a linguistic reservation, or I think that's not really it, but it's a place where yeah, do you get it?
Yeah, so it's quite lit. The effect of the motion is quite limited. It's limited to quite specific areas. That's important.
Apologies, David. Sorry, it's getting very difficult to hear what's happening in the room there. If you could paraphrase what questions are being asked, just so we can follow the conversation, please.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Not everyone speaks to the microphone.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's make sure. Yeah.
Basically, one question was asked if it would affect non-Gaeltacht areas, and that's a clear no. It would only affect designated Gaeltacht areas and the use of geographic names in Irish. Another suggestion was that we quickly referenced the what might be not the shelf solution in the amendments and get to a point where we can arrive at an acceptable amendment to the original motion for vote. I think that was a suggestion made as well.
Okay, sorry. So, just if Simon wanted to speak, can we just Ruth, can you confirm when Simon speaks? Can you confirm that you can hear him?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can mention that I run mountainviews.ie. We actually have needed to deal with the issue of the many names for mountains, both in the Gaeltacht and everywhere else. We actually have names wherever they are available, both in English and Irish. Recently, we added the east-west names for about 300 mountains in Ireland. So the approach that we have taken is, no, we're not going to go compulsive. The approach we've taken is we present the names, we allow people to decide whether they want to have mostly Irish, mostly English, where there is English. Mostly, we also have a policy whereby you can choose to have stress the Irish in Gaelic areas. There's a choice allowed to people, and if it's one thing, I mean, I agree with some of the points made before. There's a lot of history in this original motion, but if there's one thing that I got out of the history is compulsion is a very bad idea. Compulsion on people to speak English in the past is still reverberating centuries later. And I think that in an inclusive world, we should not be aiming to do that. And I really don't agree with a compulsive policy. And I think, yes, I actually agree with the proposition that where Irish names are known in Gaelic, yes, why not use them, but not exclusively. I mean, you mentioned, for example, the current version of the Ordnance Survey 1 to 50,000. For example, the map that it has for Dingle and the Dingle area. I mean, I think a lot of people will find a lot of the names completely unfamiliar. I doubt very much that since 1956 and the various amendments to do with the Gaeltacht, I doubt very much whether that reflects the population there at all. There's zero interest in changing this for a whole range of reasons. I doubt very much whether that represents the thing. And you can actually get a hint of that in the most recent 1 to 50,000 map of the Dingle area. The name Dingle has been suppressed by the Ordnance Survey. By the way, the Ordnance Survey, if you actually talk to the individuals there, they say, well, we didn't want to do this, but we were told to do it by O'Keefe. And that's actually more compulsion. So in fact, Dingle is Dangan y Cush, and there is no name Dingle, even though 88% of the population of Dingle said, no, we want it called Dingle. So it doesn't represent in that particular instance, and I doubt very much whether it represents in every mountain area that it represents the wishes of the local people. That said, I'm well aware, I've often been over there quite recently, in fact, it's quite clear there's a lot of people speaking Irish. Great. Let them speak Irish and let us choose.
Sorry, yeah. I don't think name.
I would just have to say that since the Official Languages Act was amended in 2021, all the base names of Gaelic are now protected by the Act, and they are now officially in the Irish language. They're in the Ordnance Area, not in Irish.
Yeah, that's what we have to say. What we want.
Sorry, I would just say that.
So if other mapping companies are deciding they want to let them choose, that's fine. The official name is technically the Irish language name. Doesn't really make sense to me why you use the English version. I live in the Gaeltacht. I would say, why not? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just maybe hold the microphone a bit closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I would actually argue that not saying not being compulsive actually means you are mandating for English language only names. Really, if you don't decide to use the Irish names, you are deciding to use the English names.
Right. Yeah, Brian, yeah.
I would say that Mountaineering Ireland already uses Irish names. I mean, if you look at our premium hill walking publication, Irish Peaks, we've a lot of effort put into using the Irish names there, and giving people the choice. Again, it's I agree, compulsion is not something that we particularly want to do, but we do support the use of Irish names, and we support the intent behind this. It's not always easy to pick the Irish name. So experts disagree. If you take the peak of the Man Turks, for example, OSI don't name it. East, West, Harvey, everybody else, there's 5 different names for it. And there's no active body reconciling all the different names. So that's why we put in things like, that's why we're nervous about mandate, and we're nervous about not having where possible I think we've shown our best efforts basis to use Irish names, and to be inclusive in using Irish and English and respect the right to choose, but also being aware of the practicalities that there is still quite a bit of dispute about the names of certain place names. You know, we would like to work more closely with the different stakeholders, Log Anam, place names section in the Department of Tourism, various matchmakers to try and resolve that. But it's not resolved. And the reality today is, we do best efforts where possible.
Okay, I'm going to try and
respond to the two, and is that all right?
Okay, maybe just okay. Cool, yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
just a quick. No.
Okay, go on.
Just
go
a
on,
bit
go
point
on.
because okay. So firstly, there is an official body about Place Names Commission, Logan LE, and they have a mountains division. I will also argue that there are places like Croagh, which Mountaineering Ireland calls Croagh all the time. Loads of people call it the Reek. We're not having a debate about that. You just decided to call it Croagh. Other people call it the Reek. Who cares? You have one name. That's it. That's fine. There is official names for Gaelic regions by the state that run it. Other places, I agree with you that different maps have different names. Different places. Barry Dalby thinks that Bina Tidora is one point in the Banadola, and Harvey Maps thinks Bina Tidora is a different point. That's up to them. There's Luganum has Bina Tidora, and my thing would be to follow the official one. That's just to that point that there is no official thing that's not really true. There is an official name, and there are other people that say, "Oh, I think that's right," but like the Reeks or the Reek and Croagh, so what? Really, people know it. And then just on your point there, Simon, about the Gaeltacht being official, when I said it came from the ground up, I'm referring to the Gaeltacht civil rights movement, and this was a big part of what they did. And from Connemara perspective, the Connemara Gaeltacht, it did come from the ground up, and there was great Athrin in Corcovina, I know that. And from the point of view of Spidsale, in the Connemara Gaeltacht, the road signs changed and nothing happened. There's someone there mentioned tourists, and tourists don't care. You go anywhere in the world, you drive around Germany and you see Munich, you don't see it on the road signs, you don't see Cologne on the road signs, you see Köln and Munich. Tourists don't really care. That's just the point on the internet there.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll pick me up. I don't know. Okay, so just I wouldn't quite agree with it. If I had to play the euro for every time somebody asked me where was Ventry, they couldn't find Ventry, I'd be very rich.
But my point is that guidebooks are wrong.
No. The road signs are
Control.
On the maps call it Ventry. I'm just saying, if I had a euro for every time a tourist asks me where I can't find Ventry, so it does matter. But
whose fault? That's the mapmaker's fault. That's Mountaineering Ireland's fault for using it's the official name is this. Why are we using a different name?
Okay, can I just maybe just I don't want to get into that. We're getting quite late.
Yes.
This is a very honourable discussion, and exactly the same as the last motion. It's about our heritage and our culture. And I would feel remiss of Mountaineering Ireland.
Vince, can you use the microphone?
I would feel remiss of Mountaineering Ireland to let this motion go and potentially get defeated and create any animosity arising from that. But it has sparked a debate and a really good discussion. And I feel that this discussion could be better played out within the committee structures, especially the Access and Conservation. And I hear you, Matthew. I think a vote could be actually useful to see. But I would not want the vote to be the end of this, because this is too important for Mountaineering Ireland. It's too important for our culture to just end up after a 5 or 6 minute trash around the room and get dispensed with. So a quick consideration that this could be better brought forward to a more considerate place, where a motion that is in the best interest of all gets taken on board and actually sanctioned by the organisation that we're all here in support of, for the betterment of the Gaeltacht and the Irish language.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's impossible to vote.
Just let me just see where we're trying to figure out where we're at here. I suppose the question
Sorry, David, just to say there's a few questions online here as well.
And I'm reading some of them, and I think there's a general I think if you look at the motion as on the screen, I suppose there's two issues. There is a lot of emotive language in it, and I think we're all agreed that can go. So that's a, and I thought that was probably, when Helen and I looked at it, probably our initial concern was around the multiple language, and I suppose the fact that not everybody thinks the same. So I think we're kind of pretty close to agreement on that. I do like Vince's suggestion, and we did actually suggest that maybe this would go through a members forum first and have a little bit more consideration to crack. We are really supportive of what you're trying to do here. We don't want to create something that's going to be contentious going forward. So there's a couple of options here. We could agree not to vote on it and bring it to a members forum, and maybe have a more, and maybe we could look at how we might look at the committee structure to maybe somebody suggest to try to craft something in consultation with yourselves. I think, to me, if you take, personally, if you take out the emotive language side, I'm almost happy with it. I did that. That's my personal view. A little bit worried about the mandate bit, and I think we should do it in as much as possible in whatever language.
What does that mean?
But if you look at, we have a track record of this. We did when we produced Irish Peaks, we went through an extensive process to try to find the correct, and it wasn't just any old name. It was trying to find the correct Irish name. So we do.
Oh, you do, and someone like being at the Dáil in the Montour, you only have that.
Yeah.
So someone who you have already done it in some instances. And that's commendable.
And we want to do that. So I suppose that's no. Do you want to?
Yeah, David. Hi.
Mike.
Mike.
No, he's no.
Okay. I think in the interest of openness and transparency, you should now look at the amendment which was proposed, just to see how close these two things are and how far apart they are. But we haven't actually.
I'd like to amend this now and just vote on it as that.
Okay.
Just
The amendment just
pretty much that. With the stuff take. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we see the amendment?
Sorry, guys. We're asked to put hands up, and they're not being called to speak. There's a couple of people waiting to speak.
All right. Okay. This is always the problem with hybrid meetings. Apologies to people online. Okay, who do we know? Who's
David, Jane, and then I think Matt is next to speak then.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been up for quite a while, so some of the points I was going to make have been made. Just on a very practical level, I think I agree with this proposal. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's really important. I would go a step further and say we should use them full stop, regardless of what area that they're in. But I think the naming of names is forever a difficult decision, and what I know from living in Connemara and Gaeltacht for a number of years, you get 10 different names for different areas, local names, and ones on the map. And I suppose my kind of areas, how do we maintain that ability to communicate? And when a map might give one name, and then where our members are going to be looking at maps, for sure they will be. So to kind of give some commitment to have some trust in us that we will do an endeavour to do our best with using the names, to trust that we'll do that. I know it's not a mandate, and I understand entirely that if it's not a rule, then it might be lapsed. But I think to have some leniency for that and some trust in us that we will do a good job and we'll do our best for that. And things, that we can, I suppose, with review, look at, our handbooks, that we have an Irish language version of handbooks. We have them in Welsh. And, that's something that could be done for, from the training perspective, or for other handbooks that we have them in an Irish language translation, so that it is there available to show our regard and to put our importance on the language of this country. And the final point just is in terms of accessibility for all of our members, for all of the participants and so on, and that managing how people can communicate, I suppose. That point. Thanks.
Just somebody, Maura, who is next?
The next gentleman is Matt, so he's his hand raised as well. Thanks, David.
Sorry, Matt, for ignoring you.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I'm going to put it plainly, probably. The motion actually says proactive measures, so it doesn't actually say anybody's being compulsively. We're doing this compulsively. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of emotive stuff at the beginning of it, but you know, I walk in Scotland a lot, and I can't say the place names, but I learn to say them. I use websites that will give me the pronunciation, and I don't see the problem at all.
Thanks. Okay. So, I mean, I'm really trying. So unless it's a mandate, it is meaningless. Best endeavours completely neutralises the motion. That's done work. Okay. So how do we do? Maybe can we just can we show the amended and put stuff back in? Maybe that might.
And then do the thing that you did where you delete.
Okay, so
edit it real time.
In real time, yeah.
So Ruth, if you go out of presentation mode.
That's the second, yeah. So that's what the third motion that you did for.
It's an amendment. Start at exact same place.
Sorry, that is the amendment there, yeah.
Yeah.
So how close is that?
Where possible, that'd be grand.
Is your intent right that if we started at mountaineering, if we ignored?
Yeah, so you can go back to my one there and edit that. And I'll show you what my edit is.
Proposer of the motion.
Yeah, are you? Well, this was your point that we shouldn't have another motion per se.
Yeah.
So we're talking about amendments.
This is an amendment list.
I think that on a procedural thing, I think the key thing is whether or not the amended motion is sufficiently different to be a different motion or not. Or whether it's you know, it's kind of.
Can we just amend this before we go on to the, you know, and.
Okay.
But you can still speak on the.
Yeah. With, you know, it's essentially a third motion put in after this was put in on base. Okay.
It's an entirely legitimate amendment.
Yeah.
Let's not get tied up in procedure.
Yeah.
How close is the amendment to being acceptable?
But my point is that amendment wasn't given to everyone in due course, in due time,
The requirement for distribution of amendment is it can be distributed as it was earlier in the meeting.
Yeah.
For the first thing, it can be done on
But this
the
is
day.
not how it was done at the first.
Amendment can be submitted on the day in the meeting.
I know, and submitted now, not as a separate thing, like we edit this.
This was submitted on the day. Well, can we see it, the amendment?
Look, all we're trying to do. Okay, let's try and edit this one. Okay, so Ruth, what I suggest, if you start by
Mountaineering Ireland.
Yeah.
And just delete everything above that.
Yeah, gone. Everything else gone. This Mountaineering believes that.
So just if you take out from see the
It's under a lure.
sorry, yeah, Will. Oh no. Yeah, can you give him the microphone there? Sorry. Yeah.
So what I've highlighted there, am I deleting that?
Yes, please, Ruth.
No.
We still have a question.
Right, I'm just going to copy it all first, just in case.
Sorry, this person's still waiting to speak for like the last 5 minutes. The microphone has been handed to him and then everybody cuts him off.
Sorry, yeah, apologies.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but my understanding of running at any meeting, means one person can be standing at any time.
Okay, let's look, we're really trying to be, you know, hear everybody here. So we just, do you want to, Will, can you? Well, I'm inviting to speak, but.
Do we sit down?
Yeah, sorry, that's better, yeah. If you actually just sit down, I'll just, I can just go back to your seat. And stay there. Sorry, can you get like? Yeah.
Yves Galea. I believe that the purpose of the original motion is to promote the use of place names in the Gaelic format. Peaks Mountaineering Club motion fully supports, fully achieves this purpose also. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is William Smith. I'm a member of the Peaks Mountaineering Club, an avid hill walker, and a farmer, and also a trained historian. I felt it was important to make that opening statement at the very start of this thing, because we really are here in full agreement, and the motions are pushing an open door within Mountaineering Ireland. As has been mentioned previously, the Irish Peaks publication shows that the Mountaineering Ireland fully supports the use of Irish place names for the mountains, and certainly everywhere in Ireland, not just in Gaelic regions, not just in the Gaeltacht regions. My belief is that the stripped down motion removes what can, as what we've seen already here, contentious and emotional elements to Irish place names. And even as mentioned already, in Gaeltacht areas, there's highly contentious what is the name that wants to be used. And the debate of the thing has been mentioned already, where Dingle on Dangan or Dangan on Coosh fully exemplifies that debate that can be so contentious. As a historian, there is nothing that I like more than an informed debate on 18th or 19th century historical matters. But that is in the correct forum. Mountaineering Ireland is not a historical forum. I believe that it is the correct forum for such debates are not in Mountaineering Ireland. Therefore, I would urge members to support the amendment to the motion, which is
the amendment. Ruth, can you put it back to just shows the amended motion? This is essentially your motion, right? Yeah. You just go back.
Next.
No. Yeah. There we go.
Okay. The amended motion. I'd like to say at this juncture that Peaks Club had no hand active part in the structure or the standing orders or any of that other debate. My sole purpose is to remove the contentious issues from the debate so that Irish place names can become used more broadly and accepted within the wider community. It isn't a neither or. This is not a debate about, and Mountaineering Ireland should not, I believe, get involved with a debate about promoting Irish place names. We are an inclusive organisation. So the amended motion is quite simple. Mountaineering Ireland recognises the names of most of our mountains, hills, valleys and rivers, streams and other features hill walkers, mountaineers and climbers encounter in Ireland are of Irish origin. Mountaineering Ireland supports the use of Irish language place names in greater regions of the country, and where possible will include Irish language names in press releases, letters, submissions, social media posts and other publications. I believe we nearly do it already. Thank you.
Okay. So, I know, look, all we're really trying to do here is, I suppose our intention of this was just not to be so, and that's where we started. Yeah. That was the point we so okay. So do you want to actually? Yeah.
Yes.
If you talk
to
that.
I accept the removal, as I said previously.
Yeah.
Fully accept the removal of the initial section of the motion that I submitted down to that. Don't accept the where possible thing. Like I would change everything, take all the top it out, as I said, and leave the mandate. That's what I want my motion to be voted on. That's it. And then if the members reject it, okay. But I, as I said, it has been said by a few people, where possible, doesn't mean anything really to me, you know, my experience of all of this before, you know. So I prefer to, yeah, happy enough, cut out all the stuff at the top, fine, no bother.
We've got agreed, we're all agreed on that. I think
Yeah,
that's good.
And then vote on, we all agree on the
So are we motion 2A and 2B then? So 2A is this one and 2B or whatever.
No, I think that, yeah, I think what we'll, if we're going to vote on this, what we'll have to do is we will have to vote. There's a proposal to amend the motion to this. We'll have to vote on that first. Right. That's the very procedurally correct thing to do. If that is, just let's work this through. If the proposed, and very little, if the proposal to amend the motion is rejected, then we go to vote on the original.
Yeah. And just so that is different than what happened in the first. So.
Okay, just I don't fully accept that. Okay.
Can you explain that again? I don't understand.
Okay, so there's a proposal to amend the motion. Sorry. No, that's an amendment. That's a proposed amendment. So can you give just the microphone to? Yeah. Tana, sorry. Yeah. And then we go to Will. Sorry.
I just don't understand. Why? Can you explain it again?
Okay. There's a proposal to amend the original motion to this. We'll have to deal with that first. That's the way. That's the way. That's the way.
So we have to
that's the way.
Yeah, just the point that that's not what was done first.
Effectively is. I don't really agree. Don't really. Okay, can we just get back microphone to Will?
Mr. Chairman, as Lynn said, it's a big danger that this debate would actually defeat what we're trying to achieve. If this motion is accepted, then the other motion is but the danger is that both motions stay. And as Vince said, that is a loss for everybody.
Look, I wonder. I mean, my preference at this stage, at this hour of the night, is to kick this to a members forum, which I think was our original preference. This requires. I mean, it's like we're trying to do the right thing here. We're trying to support this. I think it's too late at night to try to wordsmith this into something that we can all accept. There are. I mean, we're 90% there, but we're just not quite there. So that would personally, I'm not imposing that view, but that personally would be my recommendation at this point. Any reaction to that?
Someone just commented, give it another 10 minutes and amend motion. If you were in agreement to discuss it at the members forum, maybe that could come with a caveat of a timeline, because ultimately it represents the where possible, as in it's kicked down the line, but how far down the line, right?
Yeah, like kind of, I prefer just to vote,
right? And
if you don't want the one that I've put down and taken out, that's okay.
Well,
can I just get we have to vote on this amended version.
The normal
we have to either vote on this 2A or the full number 2. We can't, Matthew can't amend this motion.
That is a possibility.
This is the only amended version we can vote on.
Maybe we vote on this and then we vote on Matthew's amendment.
Yeah.
So why not?
So we can vote on this now, or you can amend this other one and vote on.
Okay, could we just go back to your? Can we flip back to the? We're trying to figure out this. Look, it's late at night. We're just trying to figure out the best way through here. We just flick back to Matthew's motion, please.
Ruth, can you go back to motion 2, please? And maybe exit presentation mode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What happened there?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. And with Matthew's agreement, maybe delete everything you've highlighted.
Delete that highlighted piece. So we can now.
And you can reject it.
Okay. Now,
And now,
We are voting on
corrective measures should be taken to retain the prominence of the language place names
That doesn't make sense.
and mandates to use our.
could we, could we, one option would be, sorry,
Ruth, could you expand that? Just make it bigger so it can be read by the.
Thank you.
It's okay for, that's for now.
It's the only difference where possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're voting on where possible.
that's really what we're voting on. Can I just maybe say that one other option would be that we see, instead of mandates, encourages or promotes.
That's all, that's the crux of it, like, that's just changed it to your other emotion, or to the other motion, you know, but that's the point of it. Is that you will do it, not that you'll think about doing it,
Okay.
it's a nice thing to do, you know, that's my whole issue with, you know, that kind of thing.
So, sorry,
David,
yeah.
if I could just go in there, Joan Malloy,
You
board
can.
member, has a hand raised as well, just looking to join the conversation.
Okay, who's looking to me in, Maura?
Joan Malloy?
Joan, okay, Joan, so we just take Joan first because she had her hand up for a while. Hi, Joan.
Hi guys, just a quick Joe Malloy on the board of directors Mountaineering Ireland. We've given this amendment a lot of thought this week, and we've given just to kind of make sure that we understand what we're doing when we talk about a mandate and the commitment that might require the organisation to make in terms of resources and staffing, and to make sure that everybody is very cognizant of that when they think of that's the organisation that that is representing them, and that's where that we want to spend our resources and our effort. We're all totally agreed with the it's not just lip service, you know, we really think this is important, and this is why we have an AGM, so that we can get feedback from our members like this, and this is something that we want to implement. The only reason we are worried about the mandate language is from that overcommitment of resources and staff from our perspective. So I just thought, just to make sure that that's the perspective we're coming from. It's nothing to do with not wanting to promote the motion. It's just worried about backing ourselves into a corner that we can't follow up on for reasons out of our control.
Thanks, Joan. Yes.
We are heading.
We need to be quick.
Yes, so basically what I am going to say, we are going to the draft, we are going to vote on one subject twice, and those votes may be valid in both cases, and they will be contradictory.
No, it's not.
Okay, because what I see, the motion number 2 was the subject put on the table, and the motion number 2A is valuable, well structured, but just a voice in the same subject. So we either discuss one common motion, regardless, we will call this 2 or 2A, but one common, we agree all together to vote about, or we just move it outside of this meeting to open discussion on the media. We have access to it. There is no other way. Thank you.
Brian, do you want to?
I'm just thinking procedurally. Just thinking procedurally, we've got a motion to amend it, which uses the mandate language, and we've got the amended motion, which removes the mandate and puts in where possible. I mean, that's what we're down to now, isn't it? Deciding between the two of those. Can we just vote on those two?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we put on this, like, agree to the amendments.
Pardon?
Actually,
Actually, what I do.
No, you don't have to agree to the amendment because if we vote on it. So we can vote on the vote to amend the proposal, and then that's then we so that's so the difference really between the two is the word mandate.
You take out the mandate and put in agrees or
We'll make it as strong as you like, but we just, I say, the mandate leaves no flexibility. That's
Promises.
Yes.
Commits to, agrees to.
Just all I said.
Thank you.
One of the last comments to come up on screen suggested removing mandates and mandate.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Commits to.
Yeah.
Promises to.
Is that
Well, if we remove the mandates and the mandate, we're taking proactive measures.
like, I like the bit about the proactive, but this has the other one doesn't have it, the proactive measures. We have that. But the concern is that if we lock this in, absolute, that there may not be problems, but there may be problems. There may be problems if we're using, if you're using names of mountains that are not on maps, if there's local disagreement.
I know, but my point is that you use the official name, and that's it, that's on the that's the one that's on the LA, one that's on the Place Names Commission that have been doing it for 70 years, you know, it's.
But I do, okay. Sorry, Simon.
I think the motion number 2 amendment there leads Mountaineering Ireland into starts talking about proactive measures to reclaim the prominence of our Irish language place names and mandates to use the Irish language versions, etc. I think that's back to compulsive language. I think people will decide one way or another what language they want to use, the Gaeltacht and everywhere else. I don't think we should be associated as a sport organization with a particular way of looking at how language policy should be derived. I think that I think people will decide, and that's the view I've always taken. Less compulsion, more respect for difference. Let people decide what they want to use.
Okay, so let's just decide how we're going to move this forward.
I wouldn't agree with that much at all.
Okay.
Matthew, the accept promises.
Yeah. What? Sorry, you want to say
Why
that?
can't they just take the word
Increase.
mandate out?
Yeah, the word mandate
Because
is.
everyone seems to
Work
support
agrees,
it.
like it's, but the issue is.
Yeah, several saying that. Let's move on.
Yeah, move on.
Okay.
I would say I go with agrees.
Let's vote on the amendment.
Just there.
And then we come back to this, it's amendment, just.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to vote on there's a proposal to amend the motion.
Yeah.
So we're going to.
A.
Yeah, to A, yeah.
Okay, so if that goes down, we vote on this.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or else we can pick it into a member's forum.
Vote it down.
Let's do one or the other.
Okay, we're going to take, we're voting on the proposal to amend the motion as proposed by Will. Can we get that on the screen? So let's be clear, if this vote passes, then this is. Yeah. Okay.
We'll see if you that's not
Yeah,
it.
That's not it.
Yeah, no. Can we get to?
Just one more thing.
Apologies that this is taking so long, but look, I think it's a good, most debate we've had at an AGM in years, so, you know. Sorry.
Can you explain ahead to motion?
what we're voting on.
Sorry, David, is this the correct poll? It's very hard to hear what's happening.
Yeah,
here.
can you move forward one slide to the amended? Yes. Okay.
Okay, no, that's it.
No, we have to vote on the other one.
No.
Standing orders.
Yeah.
Standing orders.
So vote choose. On this meeting.
The youngest amendment gets voted.
We don't vote on this one, we vote on the original amendment, yeah.
No, this is the.
Sorry.
Okay, if we can't resolve this, I'm going to take it to members forum.
We vote.
Hmm?
Nobody is standing 2 minutes. On what's there.
Procedurally, the correct thing to do is to vote on the
On
amendment.
2, as it was presented, amended.
No, that's not correct.
No, I totally agree with the people here. You can't vote on 2A
It'll be 2 minutes, and if they know, I need to go on to rate attention.
Latest amendment gets voted.
No, I'm afraid, look, I'm going to have to rule on this. The approach in all, the approach is, we've taken advice on this, we must vote on the amendment.
No, I think this is a different motion. This is, it's amended to two. I agree with the original proposer. This 2A is a new motion. But we.
No, it's not a new motion.
No, it's not a new motion.
It's not a new motion.
It's titled motion 2A.
So to me, I've been on it many times, and the other motion 2 as amended is the motion we're voting on now. It was amended tonight, is that?
Yeah, they amended.
Well, amendments should be sufficient.
The first motion we arrived on. Because the newest motion is the new one. That's the newest one.
The original proposer made a motion, that he has the right to amend it.
No, if you read, sorry, can we show stands, can we get standing orders up again, please? It's quite clear that members can propose amendment to a motion. That's absolutely clear.
That was done yesterday or whenever it wasn't done at the meeting.
No.
We hadn't.
But that's irrelevant, sorry.
It's not relevant.
Here we are. Go through a motion.
I think the tone of the meeting, the tone of this meeting is obvious, but we need to vote on it.
Well, Alistair's made a comment there.
Yeah.
Thanks. So he's saying we must vote on the amendment, which is the 2A. Yes, that's legal advice.
Just like,
So what do we vote on?
we have to vote on the amendment first. That's
The earlier amendment.
Yes, yes. As per standing order, as we discussed.
Yeah.
Be specific, which one? 2A.
Proposed by the Pete's.
like the other option is we can do this we can take this to, and I still think it's the right thing to do, is to take this to the members forum and try to.
I would invite both motions to draw them to the members forum. Get the thing, organize ducks in a row, discussion had, bring it to the members forum, agree here if you wish, the members forum will have a vote and be a binding vote on this, agree to take this forward, but move on. We can say it up here, and it's not really us any good. No.
I just vote. That's it. Go on.
Okay. No, look, hang on, not taking any more, not taking any more. We just got legal advice that we should vote on the amendment first. That's the got advice from the solicitor.
Show us what you want to vote on first.
2A, please. 2A, please. Ruth.
Right.
Sorry, Ruth, this is get extra brownie points for this.
So as chair, you're asking us to vote on this first.
Well, I'm going with Ali's advice that we should vote on the amendment first.
Yes.
David, can I just come in there as well, please?
Yes, thanks, Laura. You've got
Just to clarify, you know, I agree with the legal advice we have. You vote on the newest amendment that comes in. But given that we spent over 50 minutes already discussing motion 2, I think what Vince McLennan is saying is that it makes a lot of sense. This is quite a big deal, and maybe the most rational approach now at such a late hour would be to look at this as a members forum, but do work before a members forum through a committee structure, through one of our committees, our hill walking committee or access and conservation committee, for example, to draw this out more, because there's been a lot of discussion of pros and cons of how to do it and the practicalities and what is within our gift to deliver and what isn't. For example, I was born and raised in the Connemara region, and when I looked out the front door of my mother's house, the hill in front of our house had 4 different names, and each name was correct. So it's quite challenging to get the exact detail down. Government hasn't done it since the formation of the state, and it's a big project. So I would agree with what you're saying, David, that if we're voting, we vote on the amended one first, or else we put this to the members forum at a future date and to have more discussion and debate on it. Could we have spent over 50 minutes on it already?
Okay. my preference is to kick this to a members forum. I just think it's just divisive. Voting is just going to be divisive. I don't think it's going to achieve. Is there? Is no.
Yeah, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion running through this whole thing. And quite frankly, I don't think we have the airtime for everybody who has a view on this to get their views sort of dealt with and processed and so on. So the only condition I would have to take you to the members forum, but we would have to put a date on it and say, on or before this date, come back and tell us what you think. Because sometimes committees can just get a life of their own and go on forever and ever and ever. That's not good enough either. So yeah, I'm with you on this, David, with a date.
Well, we are planning to have a members forum at the autumn gathering in 23.
But it gives them a bigger forum to express their opinion.
You're still not happy.
First, I don't know about members forums. And
A members forum is normally what happens in, I suppose, it's been a little bit different since COVID. Normally what happens is there's an AGM and a members forum at a gathering.
Yeah.
That's the way it normally works. And the idea of the members forum is that there's more, the AGM is by its nature a very legalistic. I mean, we spent most of the time today going through essentially legal requirements of the Companies Act. The members forum allows more debate and more discussion among members. That's
and have you put a motion into that? Is that what I just suggested again?
I think what we could do is we could ask maybe the Hill Walking Committee or to liaise with you to get a motion that can perfect a motion, and I think we could probably decide here that we will ask the maybe we'll propose a motion here that we'll ask the members forum to consider this and make a decision on it. I know that, yeah. But Helen, if we mandate them to make that decision,
Okay.
I think that's why we'd have to vote now to ask the members forum to consider this. I think that would be, and then the members forum can make that, because otherwise, as Helen says, we don't normally make decisions at the members forum, but it's an opportunity for more informed discussion. My concern is that we want to get this right.
New members can, any of us.
And we're so close. I think we're so close to something that we're all agreed on. Yeah. We're just not quite there.
David, there was a great question from here behind me. Who could be on the members forum?
Every member, it's fair, there's a lot of members in NCI.
Well,
have all those people.
Yeah, the members forum, the members forum now, the intention was to do an online members forum after the AGM. So we could I'm just saying that correct me if I'm wrong, Maura, but we could organize to do that relatively soon before the summer. And it would be an online meeting. Obviously, if we do it outside of the autumn gathering, it'd be an online meeting because we're not going to bring people together.
It's open to every single member.
It's open to every single member, yes. Yeah. It's just we're really close to something that we can all sign up to, but we're just not quite there. So I know you're not fully happy.
No, whatever.
Look, yeah.
Kerry, 5.5 hour drive home. That's all.
Okay, look, can I then? I know we don't have a poll on this, Ruth, but I'm going to make a proposal that we'll organise a members forum on this by the end of June to discuss this in and maybe give some consideration, have the Hill Walking Committee give some consideration to it in advance. We can try to craft something I just don't want us to row over this. It's not.
I know, I'm fine.
I know, yes, but I don't want anybody to feel hard done by it. And it's got quite confusing with motions and counter motions. My head is fried at this stage. Okay.
Have to drop me home as well.
Okay. Are you going back to Kerry tonight?
Yes.
I'm sorry, if I just move on, if we're gonna move on, it's 10 o'clock and everybody has to.
Yeah, I know now,
The sun's gone down.
okay, we're gonna move on then, we're gonna accept, we're not gonna, we'll accept, as nobody is raising any objections, I'm gonna take that as accepted. We have then nominations for the board, for president. We have one nomination for president, which is Rita O'Connell from Castleblaney Hill Walking Club. So given that we have one nomination, I'm leaving her elected. If that's okay. Yeah. You okay with that? Excellent. Okay. We have
Congratulations, Rita.
We have 4 nominations for 5 board positions. So can we show those? Some of it will be election. Okay. Yeah, no, sorry, we're after blowing root system here. We have 4 nominations. Yeah, we go for the board. We have Noel, who was just completed his first term, as nominated again by the Irish Mountaineering Club. With Brian Keenan, who is nominated by who's nominated by the Irish Ramblers Club. Alan Lauder is the chair of the Access and Conservation Committee. He's been nominated by 3 members of the Access and Conservation Committee, and I have to own up and say I'm one of the people who nominated him. And then we have Joan Malloy nominated from Dalreida by Dalreida Climbing Club. So given that we have 4 nominations for 5 positions, I propose we deem those elected. Thank you. Okay, is there anything? Are we? What's it? We just on that. Is that's it?
That was about what we accepted, doing the one black.
Okay, we do that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so apologies for but as I say, that's probably the most debate we've had in the AGM in about 20 years. Yes. That's the thing. Oh, there's. I think I'm in that. Thank you very much, everybody, and apologies for keeping so late. That was hard to take off.
His car is the red bus.
You didn't think of
Beyond Westwich.
whereabouts? All right.
Okay, well, good night, everyone.
So just the meeting is ended.
I'll send you an email.